Fafita to Wiley. Wiley down the sideline. Wiley breaks the tackle. Wiley has gotten into the end zone.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Here's a long run. Oklahoma State gonna do it again, and guess who? Big O to the house.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And wow, Haynes King kept it. Faked it to Dante Smith, and here goes King. Inside the Carolina 30.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Nix in the gun, fakes the handoff, pressure coming, throws end zone, wide open, Franklin makes the catch. Troy Franklin, 3-yard reception. Utah brought the heat, but couldn't stop the Ducks, who've scored again, and now lead 20-3.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Dylan Gabriel. He got there. His throw to the end zone. Incomplete. A generational win for Kansas. Finally toppling Oklahoma.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Got hung up in the wind a little bit. Here's Worthy, makes the first man miss. Straight ahead past the 40. Kick to the beat. There he goes. Worthy making a house call on a punt return. Xavier Worthy with a 75-yard return for a touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
It is the first time we've done a show on Friday since the last or the third weekend in August, because Craig and I are normally at a high school football game, the team that we broadcast midway. This is their off week because of an odd number of teams in their district. So it's nice to be back in the studio on Friday to see what's happened while we have been away, making sure that the class and standard of what we do has remained intact. It appears as if that is a possibility.
10 in a row, and there's probably one or two more at least that I'll have to do without you guys. So we've had a pretty good hitting streak here.
Yeah,
so.
no, next week there'll be a playoff game. We'll be out of pocket. Maybe, who knows, maybe another one after that. There's a lot to get to. We have Garrett Ross running the mothership. Jack McKenzie is here. He has a cot like Joe Gibbs did when he was coaching the Redskins. He never left. He would just sleep in his office. Jack is here all the time. Emery, Levi doing what they do. And this is 365 Sports tonight. Last night, we'll start with this, a huge win. Texas Tech at home beat TCU. TCU had turned the corner through a couple of bad picks in the fourth quarter. Tech and Joey McGuire get a much-needed win in Lubbock to get to their fourth win, now 4-5 on the year, and that one for a while looked a little bit dicey when TCU made a nice comeback in the second half.
Yeah, it begs the question, though. I mean, I mentioned it yesterday during the top five. Who is staring bowl elimination in the face after this week? And, really, both Tech and TCU are after this one. If TCU had won, they wouldn't be, but Tech has Kansas, UCF, and Texas left, and TCU has Texas, Baylor, and Oklahoma left, and each of those teams only has one winnable game, at least, or I say outwardly winnable game on that. Like, definitely they're going to be the favorite in, and so both these teams could wind up 5-7 and out of the bowl picture.
Craig, it looks like TCU has a little bit of that the day or year, after winning a bunch of close games, and now they're not able to, not as much as they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things from that game. Where do you want to start, Texas Tech or TCU side of things?
Let's start with TCU. No, start with the winning team. They earned it. They won the game.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge win for Texas Tech. They really needed that. They needed that for bowl hopes. They needed that for morale. They needed that given it was a home crowd, and they've had to leave Lubbock disappointed at times, and so to get rallied up for big Thursday night game, knowing that the last month is here and that you really need that one to kind of keep the flame flicker in there, they got it done, and so that was huge for them to get that win. I don't think it was a win you walk away from and you feel like great about everything, but you do feel a lot better than you would have if you had lost that game, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was good for them. Taj Brooks is a beast. I mean, he is a great running back and probably doesn't get nearly enough attention as far as being one of the better running backs in the league. And maybe he does. Maybe it's just not a topic that is broached quite a lot, and Ollie Gordon's obviously getting a lot of attention there, but Taj Brooks deserves his flowers for what he's done because he's the only sturdy thing about that offense. To have Baron Morton back was big for them because Jake Strong just wasn't ready for prime time just yet. So Baron Morton came in there and had a bit of a steadier hand, more experience, and I think that obviously helped matters because and then the other thing about Tech is they just play hard, man. They play really hard. It's very reminiscent of the Matt Rule teams, and when you play hard and you just play consistently hard, things happen for you. It doesn't always guarantee a win, but if you play hard and then you have a team on the other side like TCU who's not really, playing all that well or hard or whatever, then that gives you an advantage, right? I mean, if you go there and you just keep smashing away and you just keep playing and waiting on that next play, then, eventually it's like, I think if it was Aranda or somebody else, but about just constantly pounding the rock, and then eventually it just gives way. And that's what Texas Tech reminds me of and what Matt Rule ball reminded me of and some of what Joey has as well, just from, his experience there. So, we'll see with Tech. I do think that they've got a more winnable path than TCU does because I think with TCU, it's going to be hard to beat Texas or Oklahoma. They can beat Baylor, but can they get 2 wins? I don't see them beating Texas or Oklahoma right now.
They don't have to just wait. They have to beat both, right?
Yeah. They have to beat 2. They have to beat 2 of the next 3. So does Texas Tech, but I don't think they will beat Texas and Austin at the end of the year. But can they beat Kansas on the road? Maybe. And can they beat UCF at home? They should. So I think they've got like more of a known winnable game, whereas TCU Baylor's always wonky, even though TCU usually wins that one. But it's going to be tough. I definitely think that TCU has the tougher path, though, with both Texas and Oklahoma, respectfully to Kansas. Now, as far as the TCU side of things go, man, Josh Hoover makes some throws that you really get excited about what he can do, and then he makes some of the dumbest decisions. He had an awful interception there in the second half that really flipped the tide when TCU had just taken the lead, and it looked like they were going to silence the crowd and they were going to build on that lead. They got a defensive stop. They're up 1, and then he just throws an awful pick. I mean, I've never played quarterback. I don't pretend that it's an easy thing to do, but I mean, it's like there's 4 guys, and you're throwing it like right in the middle of the 4 defense, and he's a young guy, so it's going to come with time and all that. But for right now, he is a liability. And then they had a second interception later on in the fourth quarter that really just threw it all out of whack. That might not have been his fault. It might have been the receiver's fault.
I think the receiver stopped his route.
The receiver stopped his route, so that's not on him. But, yeah, a couple bad turnovers for TCU late there. They're just there. They don't really have an identity. They
had one last year named Duggan.
They don't play all that hard sometimes, like the wide receiver just stopping his route late in a crucial throw. You just like, dude, you can't do that. They don't really have just that it factor that they had last year. When you lose all the guys they did, that's expected to some extent. But I've seen a lot of Bryles talk today, a lot of people unhappy with him, a lot of people who were all gung-ho a few months ago that are now all anti. I think some of it is your young quarterback and just replacing a lot of weapons, but things are really out of whack there in Fort Worth right now, and there's a good chance they miss a bowl game, and there's just nothing about them that's really all that impressive, and you expected a drop-off coming off the Natty run, but I think it's way worse than people expected it to be. So, it was not a good look last night for them.
I think there's still a chance both teams don't make it to a bowl game.
Very well could happen,
because of their schedule. So there we are, Texas Tech, nice win for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders, as they had their quarterback, at least the one that's still healthy, coming back from the injury back too. Now, here's a couple of stories, and we at 3:25, we have a segment. I worked on this a little bit earlier, talked to Paul a little bit about this, sent an email to Garrett and Craig too. I do rapid fire with 4 analysts of the 2 games, and I know that the Kansas and Iowa State game is huge too, but 4 analysts who cover Texas, K-State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. Rapid fire with them. I pre-produced it. Paul and Garrett did it as well. We'll have that at 3:25. We have to hit that right on the nose.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. To Texas or Tech and TCU. I just have a hard way. So, like, one of them at least is not going to make a bowl. You would think, like, the odds of them both getting those 2 wins, the way that they've each played, but. Laura Weiss makes a good point on the board. Like Tech could lose all 3, or they could like find their way to win all 3, and that's kind of the roller coaster that is the Red Raiders right now.
The thing for them is they don't play well on the road. We know that, and so they've got 2 road games in their last 3. Now, can they go up to Kansas and win that game? I think you just look at things, and that's a possibility. It's not a certainty, but it's a possibility. UCF at home, you think that they can beat UCF, even if it's a shootout or whatever. Like, you feel good about their chances in Lubbock against a UCF team that's just struggling mightily, but may get their first Big 12 win, or Cincinnati will. We'll see tomorrow. And then at Texas and Austin at the end of the year, I just don't think there's that oomph, that oomph about them like there was last year with that game in Lubbock. So I don't see them. Maybe if they won the next 2 and they're on like a 3-game winning streak and they're bowl eligible and it's just like there's nothing to lose, maybe that game in Austin would be differently. But if you're going into that one and you're needing another win, the odds aren't great there.
No,
but for both teams, they could easily lose all 3. I think especially TCU right now, just with the way that they kind of look. And especially with Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, that's 2 you'll predict right now, even though Oklahoma's kind of shaky. But the Baylor game's always weird, so we'll see.
All right, here are some other stories. This was interesting. When I first saw this, I was like, well, that's good. They're going to give this guy a chance to be a full-time coach next year. And I'm like, wait a minute. Colorado's problem has been on defense. Colorado's problem has been in the offensive line. But Pat Shurmur, former NFL coach, famous name in the NFL history, will take over play-calling duties for offensive coordinator Sean Lewis against Oregon State. Sanders must elevate Shurmur from analyst to full-time coach to be eligible, and so somebody else will then have to no longer be a part of that staff. When I first saw this, I just thought, okay, their season, obviously, this is a demotion, correct? Or is it? Is it a demotion?
I don't know. Like,
Sean Lewis is a hot commodity, you would think. If he was like to leave today, I think somebody would hire him if there was job opening.
Yeah, I think for sure they would. And I wonder, not having watched Colorado as much the last month since the speed's been off the bullet train a little bit with that one. I did watch a good part of the UCLA game, and was it Sean Lewis's fault that the offensive line can't block? I mean, he's the offensive coordinator, so it all falls on him. I guess that there's some of that there, and maybe they just need a change to figure things out. And maybe also Pat Shurmur is going to wind up having that job next year, since Sean Lewis might leave anyway and try to ride that wave. But early in the season, he was a genius, and now he's still signaling in plays. So maybe kind of a strange thing. I'm curious to hear Deion's explanation for it, and so we will. But that is kind of strange that in the middle of the season, for what the problem is not really the offense overall, it's the offensive line, that's for sure. But if you're the offensive coordinator, I guess you take the fall for all.
Well, this looks like a demotion to me,
yeah.
And I know it's kind of split a little bit on the chatter around this story. Craig, your thoughts? Sean Lewis has had, I thought, a pretty damn good year.
I mean, it's hard to tell because their offense has been so erratic at times. I mean, Shedeur has had some great moments, and the passing game has, but the run game, I mean, we talked about that earlier in the year, that they had to get something going there, and that's been non-existent. The line can't block for Shedeur. It is a situation where it kind of depends on what party you want to listen to, because there's the Deion supporters that no matter what, it was, the right decision, and that y'all weren't watching, the offense sucks, and Sean Lewis is the reason why. And, the only good part is Shedeur and Travis Hunter. The same, other observers would say, Shadeur's good and Travis Hunter's good, but you can't base your offense around just getting the ball to 2 guys all the time. You know what I mean? And, this isn't Deion's fault, or that's so it's really hard to kind of tell. But the offense has not been very well rounded, whatever you want to point that to. Deion this week, was calling out his offensive line and then caught some flack for basically saying how he was going to get rid of him and get new guys in there. And so then he kind of, I think, backed off that a little bit. And now this news drops. So, something had to give, I guess. And I don't really know what to point to. I would think that he's going to be a very attractive candidate for another program to bring in. I don't know if this is, how did you phrase it?
A demotion?
A demotion, yeah. I mean, it does certainly come across that way, but I think some of the details are still foggy because there is in that same tweet talking about him still making the play calls, is there not? So, it's something where we do need to hear Deion's side of the story.
Put that back up, Garrett, as Craig is talking. Go ahead, Craig.
Something where we do need to hear Deion's side of the story just to hear what the explanation is, and then we can kind of sort through that based on what he says. But, yeah, I mean, I think Sean Lewis is going to be just fine. I don't think he's the reason why Colorado is struggling. And, at the same time, there are struggles going on, and it's not going to be Deion that's going to take the full blame for it. So, I don't know. It's weird. It's very strange, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from Deion exactly where this decision came from.
Lewis will still signal the plays in, but it's Shermer who will take over the play calling duties.
Okay, so
not only you have somebody coming in to take your job, you're going to have to signal in his decisions.
Well, I got confused by the wording there. Yeah. So, I mean, and Pat Shermer's not somebody that really inspires a whole lot of excitement for, I think, Colorado fans or for those on the outside looking in. So, strange. I saw even, one suggestion was, is this to allow Sean Lewis to go ahead and start doing coaching interviews? And I'm like, I don't think that's a move you pull right now and the way that you're pulling it. So, yeah, some stuff to unpack here, and a strange decision for sure. A
couple other notes. Brigham Young, BYU, $10. Will start backup Jake Retzlaff as the quarterback against West Virginia. Keaton Slovis has been dealing with injuries over the last few weeks. And one other note on BYU, if you want to add to that, they had a 32-hour, 18-wheeler hauling all of their equipment and more across from Provo into Morgantown. All is not well. Bad news, we hit a deer. Good news, it didn't damage the tractor. That's 3 deer I've hit with BYU tractors over the years. It is cold in West Virginia.
Well,
didn't realize there's that many deer you got to watch out for. That's scary.
Yeah, up there in the mountains and all that. Yeah, but look, I don't think it would damage the 18-wheeler. Probably not much deer left.
No,
probably not.
Not at all. Those things, that is, if a regular car will ruin a car. Like total a car, but an 18-wheeler probably was like a bump in the road.
Well, it could kill somebody. Yeah. I mean, depending on the way that it lands and speeds and all that, that's a very dangerous thing. But, I mean, glad to know, I guess, everybody's okay. As far as the actual news goes, I mean, that's not good news that they don't have Keaton Slovis. Yeah. It hasn't been great news when they've had him, just as far as the offense hasn't been great all year. But he's had some moments here and there. He's obviously very experienced, but their offense has not been their bread and butter by any means. And so I don't know how much this changes for them other than you're looking at taking a further step down at quarterback for the moment. So, to now go to Morgantown against a very feisty West Virginia team, that's going to be tough for the Cougars to try and go get a win. And, hopefully the worst is over for them as far as the trip goes and all of that. But, that's not good news rolling into West Virginia. When your offense is already struggling, they've got a good defense, tough place to play, playing for a lot over there in Morgantown right now. So, it's going to be rough.
A game that's kind of overshadowed with two teams with winning records. And then there's this one. And when I first saw this, I'm like, what is this all about? But Jaleel Farouk, the wide receiver at Oklahoma, was arrested in Norman last night, pulled over, vehicle driving erratically, expired paper tag, arrested him on 4 outstanding municipal warrants. When I saw this, I'm like, this could be maybe something bad. It's not. It's stupid. You can't do this. You cannot not pay your tickets, whatever it might be, even if parking tickets or a speeding ticket, whatever it is. OU knows about the story. I have a feeling that, I don't know, maybe he doesn't play tomorrow in the first half, or maybe this is a no big deal. It's not criminal, and yet again, it's a legal issue, and it's just not very smart for Farouk to not take care of his tickets, even if they are parking tickets.
Well, and he was driving erratically too, so that's not good.
Yeah. So, no, you're right. Pay your tickets, and you would think that you could figure something out as a football player at Oklahoma with the stipends or something like. Yeah, maybe a lesson learned for everybody else involved. Maybe there's other guys on that team that haven't paid their tickets that now know to, hey, go break off a little from the monthly and go pay your tickets. Make sure you're not in that situation. But, the driving erratically part didn't help matters at all. Wide receiving wise, you've still got Drake Stoops, Nick Anderson, some others, but that doesn't help you rolling into tomorrow for sure. I mean, that guy's your top receiver as far as yardage goes, and so that's not a good look right before Bedlam to have that news come out. So, yeah, got to be smarter than that if you're Jaleel Farouk. That's part of the business, part of the game, and yeah, lesson learned, I guess. But if not for him, for others, hopefully. Ryan
Walters of Purdue says these are not allegations discussing Michigan. And the sign-stealing probe and investigation says that they know the tickets that have been bought, video of surveillance, etc. And Ross Dellinger had a big story about this, is that a school probe uncovered that Stalions bought 6 tickets, or tickets to 6 games over 2 years, has surveillance footage of people in his seats recording sideline. That's kind of what we've already known. And then there's Desmond Howard. I had a personal situation with him doing an interview back in 2014 when it was the Baylor TCU, who's going to be a team that maybe makes the playoff. And I questioned him. I actually followed back on a comment and opinion by him. And then I get a call from those who handle ESPN Game Day because they were coming into Waco telling me, man, why were you like arguing or going back and forth debating with Desmond? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kiss his ring. He is so hypocritical on this at Michigan. I don't understand the rush to judgment by some of the coaches in the conference. If the tables were turned, they would never want anybody to rush to judgment. He's also the same one that lost his mind because Nebraska wanted to play a football game during COVID.
Well, look, also Desmond's defending his alma mater where he won the Heisman Trophy. So it's it's not surprising that he would. And he actually, when this story broke on game day, he didn't really have a clear understanding of it. And Reese Davis, it was very professional. But it was like an awkward moment where Reese Davis said, well, yeah, but it is against the rules. And Desmond Howard kind of looked perplexed like, oh, is it? Didn't know that. So, yeah, look, he's defending Michigan here, and there's no reason to defend Michigan. And like Ryan Walter said, at this point, to what the coaches think, also, like you have to put yourself in that. The coaches don't think this is an ongoing, that there's no investigating to be done. They have, especially this year, Michigan and Purdue are playing this week, and they have video of people in Connor Stallion seats evidence of people taking video of their sideline.
Yeah, I just mentioned that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to repeat that for Desmond Howard's purposes. So if he's saying that, then in a coach's mind, that's not an we've investigated. We found it.
Yeah, these aren't allegations. We've seen this. Yeah.
We know that it's happening, so please do something about it, which I think the only thing that can be done after reading a ton about this over the last 24 hours is that maybe you can suspend Jim Harbaugh right now. You can't really do anything to the players and the team and all that because you have to be able to prove without a doubt that it was some sort of advantage, which is going to be kind of hard to do.
Oh, Michigan's not going to do that.
No, but
Big Ten.
But if the Big Ten suspends Harbaugh, then that's something that they can do right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if there's anybody in college football media that can't understand why there's such a rush to judgment, then that's just bizarre to me. I can't understand how somebody in college football media can't understand how this would be a big deal. Like, I guess you have to be a Michigan man to not understand it. Because that's apparently the only people that don't understand why this is a big deal. But, I mean, a guy who doesn't understand the outrage against the school he went to, there's going to be a lot of that. We've seen a lot of that with this story. I mean, there's a whole another wave of talk on social media about, Ohio State's role. Have y'all seen that? There's that going on, and there's more Connor Stallions footage that I've seen, and it's just the world keeps on turning with this story and becomes more bizarre and fascinating all at the same time. There is so much to unpack here, so much that you wonder if it's legit or if it's just, people trying to fan the flames or throw more gasoline on it. I don't know, man. This is such a bizarre situation that doesn't feel like it's got a conclusion coming anytime soon, and yet it will need to have a conclusion of some sort relatively soon compared, if it's going to matter in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah, man, just bizarre. As far as the Desmond thing goes, he's clearly blinded by his loyalty to the school he went to, and it's not hard to peel back a single layer and figure out how this is a big deal in college football. So I can't relate to him there. But, more to come, that's for sure. And the conversation is nowhere near over here.
Let me touch on the Ohio State thing because we've got to go to the next segment. But so if Michigan's defense is that, listen, the only reason you know about this is that Ohio State hired a private investigator.
That's the deal. Is Ohio State hired a PI that he started this whole thing.
Found this. Yeah. So the only reason you know about this is that So basically you're saying, look, we would still be doing this. You're not really mad at us. You're mad at them for telling you that we're cheating. Shut up.
Yeah. I like how it's Ohio State's fault and Michigan's in trouble. But it's
like two people. Someone killed somebody else, but then I did kill him, but his brother's the one that investigated me. It's like, that's a very more dark analogy, but it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ohio State's the one that created this. But it's still true, if that's true.
One thing we learned about that, and then the Desmond Howard is none of it's Michigan's fault. Apparently, that's none of it's Michigan's fault. What are y'all doing looking at us?
All right, when we come back, rapid fire. There are 4 analysts: Rod Babers, who covers Texas; Tim Fitzgerald covers K-State; Robert Allen covers Oklahoma State; John Hoover, who covers Oklahoma, as we highlight those 2 games, and that's not to take away from West Virginia, BYU, or Iowa State and Kansas. We will hear from Grayson Grundhafer, Josh Neighbors, Sam Bradshaw, Rangers pitcher, former Baylor star, Cody Bradford. They're having that parade right now. He'll join us too, and this is 365 Sports. It is deer season, really quickly here in the state of Texas. And they have at Waco Custom Marketplace, which is a great place to find your tailgate product and also necessities like charcoal, pellet fuel, cold beer, and wine. They have wild game processing essentials: pork and smoked sausage seasoning, smoked Polish seasoning, summer sausage seasoning, jalapeno summer sausage seasoning, snack stick, jerky, Cajun jerky, pepper jerky, seasoning, the 10-ounce cure, half no-melt cheddar cheese, a cubed no-melt pepper jack cheese, ground beef, pork trim, pork picnic, and also Hank's. Mahogany summer sausage casings, snack stick casings, dried and wild game bags, dried jalapenos and wild game bags. This is what they have on top of what they have their weekly specials, on top of what they have with their holiday specials with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, and on top of the fact they have great tailgate necessities and product. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
During Jeep Adventure Days, save big on 2023 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee Limited with values up to $5,500. Or 10% off MSRP on new Jeep Gladiators on all trim levels. Or 10% off MSRP on a new Jeep Compass at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
He played the game. He was a star cornerback at Texas. He's on the horn in Austin, among other things. As an analyst of UT football, joins me David Smoak, 365 Sports. Man, this is a collision course, and there are a handful of them this weekend in the Big 12. Is this an elimination game, in your opinion, on who can play for the Big 12 title, or is that a little bit too dramatic?
I don't think it's that dramatic at all. I think it definitely is one of those elimination games. The Big 12, it seems to be shaking out a lot differently than everybody thought it would. But I definitely think you're at a point now where you'll have a separation weekend, a lot more clarity, especially for Texas, right? Texas, you get 2 losses in Big 12 play. Looks like your Big 12 championship hopes are over. And Texas right now is trying to keep their hopes alive with a backup quarterback. And you got K-State coming in with 2 quarterbacks. And honestly, you got to give K-State the quarterback advantage and probably got to give K-State the head coaching advantage in this matchup. That's something that's really troublesome for Longhorn fans.
K-State wants to hammer you with that running game. The speed of Johnson, the power and ability to throw it. Will Howard seems to be healthy at just the right time. But UT's defense has done well against the run. What gives?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? You're talking about a top 5 rushing offense for K-State. Probably one of the most diverse quarterback run games I've ever seen. I mean, it really is that impressive. And for Texas, they struggled a little bit against quarterback run games, right? Dylan Gabriel rushed for over 100 yards. Jason Bean against Kansas really hurt Texas with the quarterback option run game. And K-State will throw all that at Texas. It's going to be really interesting, guys. It's going to come down to first down. Can Texas stop K-State on first down? K-State's a really explosive running game, have over 67 10-plus yard runs on the ground. That is the most in the Power 5. If Texas can stop them on first down and keep them to second and long, third and long, that'll be the story of the game. Keep in mind also, K-State they were one of the best third down offenses in the country, third best third down offense in the country, and Texas is the third best third down defense in the country. Something's got to give.
K-State for years known for their special teams back when Snyder was there, and even with Kleiman, of course, Worthy went the distance and is capable of doing that. Big play potential on special teams. Could it come down to something as simple, not simple, but something like that on Saturday?
No doubt it can. I think you're going to get, we can come down to hitting yardage. Also, I think it come down to K-State being able to choke the life out of the clock, right? To choke the clock down, to limit the amount of offensive possessions for Texas. Keep in mind, last week, BYU, they had one drive that they held the ball for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Rice also did something very similar in the fourth quarter when they played Texas. We saw Wyoming choke the life out of the clock versus Texas. If you can have that formula, which K-State can, because they can run the football effectively and extend drives, you can limit the amount of possessions for Texas Texas, and in a sense, pretty much shorten the game. That might be the game plan for K-State.
So, Rod, this has been a good year for Texas because of who they are, where they are right now. Obviously, the disappointing ending against Oklahoma. What would it be like at Austin Saturday night if, in fact, they don't win tomorrow?
It would be disappointing. I mean, basically the expectation for Texas was they play for a Big 12 championship this year. It's the most talented team Texas has had since 2009. All right, even though they have a backup quarterback in there was a lot of talk that Texas had the best quarterback room, potentially talent-wise, in the country. So this is a no excuses year for Steve Sarkisian. No matter what they throw out there as an excuse for why he underachieved, Longhorn fans will not accept it. All right, so this is the year that Longhorn fans are expecting him to take the next step. If he does not, especially guys, what is considered a down year for the Big 12. I'm not disrespecting him, the Big 12 team.
Right.
And we agree this is not necessarily a really strong 12, and Texas is as strong as they've been in a long time. If Sark can get this team over the hump in this conference, Longhorn fans are going to lose their patience.
Another week for Malik Murphy to take snaps in practice, get the experience of what he did. Your thoughts on how he played, considering, and how much better upside does he have?
He's got a lot of upside. Sark says he's got the strongest arm in that quarterback room, and that is true. But, he's a young guy. And what you get with young players is you get, the flashes of brilliance. You get those wow moments, but also what's up moments. And you got both of those from Malik, right? You got the touchdown to A.D. Mitchell, the deep one, and the one in the red zone. But you also got that interception where he panicked when they blitzed and they sped up his internal clock. And you got the fumble that he lost when they were in the red zone. So he's got to clean up more ball security from him, and he's got to clean up his command of the offense. If he can do that and clean up the turnovers, I think Texas wins this game. If not, then you can see K-State force that young quarterback into making more bad decisions. And, guys, that's the one thing that worries me. You know how a young quarterback's going to respond to one of the best and most well-coached teams in all the country in K-State. That's what this game is going to hinge on. Will Malik Murphy take the next step from start one to start two?
Rod, thank you. Appreciate your time. I know it's always busy. Thanks for your insight, as always, from the experience. This is 365 Sports. Tim Fitzgerald, great friend of the show, PowerCat.com, covers K-State. In Austin against Texas, this is a great matchup. K-State finally has kind of got this momentum. We know UT has had a really good year other than the late loss to Oklahoma. Is this, in your opinion, the winner? Not in to play for Big 12 title, but you surely can't lose and also not have the tiebreaker.
It really is an elimination game in some forms. Look, you could still get in with a loss, either school, but, boy, you got a lot of help. You need a lot of help. And whoever wins this game is going to be in the driver's seat for at least one of the spots. And the same might be true with Bedlam. I mean, this might sort out who gets to Arlington, or at least who likely will get to Arlington.
Yeah, because those two teams have what appears to be more of a soft ending to their schedule. K-State went through a little bit of that, what's going on, and then Avery Johnson gave them a spark in Lubbock. Now Will Howard seems to be healthy again. How much of that has just made each one of them better?
It's been tremendous. I mean, Will doesn't want to admit it, but he kind of shyly says, yeah, Avery lit a fire under him, got him more focused, got him back to playing. And, with that, I think the offensive line found some rhythm. They've been running the ball exceptionally well, not just with the quarterback game, but with their two backs. And then the defense has just been lights out. Since they fell behind a few weeks ago at Texas Tech in the second half, they fell behind 21-17. The composite score over basically the next, 9.5 quarters has been 103-3. So the K-State defense has also kind of risen up and getting it done.
Texas, we know they have the weapons, and they always have in some way. That just this one looks like a team that has some grit to it, and then maybe more than just grit. They are pretty good against the run. Not flawless, but pretty good against the run. And K-State, of course, wants to pound you. Can K-State throw the ball effective enough to keep Texas honest on defense?
Well, that's the question. They've got to find some semblance of a run game. You're looking at the top run defense in the Big 12 against the second best running offense, and that those numbers are probably not even accurate to how the K-State run game has been performing the last 3 weeks. So yeah, something's got to give. K-State's going to have to keep that defense honest, by mixing it up, being able to run a little bit, throw it downfield, use the running backs in the passing game and the tight ends, which they do a lot. So K-State's offensively going to have to be diverse and effective in some ways in the run game. They've got to get it going. They got to get over at least 100 yards, if not 150, to win this game.
Last thing, Tim Fitzgerald, PowerCat.com. What one player, and there may be 8 or 20 or 2, what one player, in your opinion, is kind of a difference maker that no one's talking about?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't think people around the conference are talking about Kobe Savage enough. He's a guy that came out of Tyler, Texas. He goes to Austin with a huge chip on his shoulder because at no point did most of the Texas schools even sniff him, and he ends up coming to K-State. He's now a team captain. He's a really effective tackler. He's just kind of an X factor on that defense. And early in the Big 12 season, they swapped 2 safeties, him and B.J. Payne, and both have been exceptional since making the position changes. And so keep an eye on number 2. His name is Savage, and he's properly named because he gets after it.
Robert Allen, sideline reporter, Oklahoma State, joins us, 365 Sports. My goodness, Bedlam, and what could be the last time. Robert, what's that emotion like this week in Stillwater?
I think it's a little bit overshadowed because the game's important. I mean, if the game weren't as important, I think everybody would be doing the history thing and the, oh, gosh, we're not going to do this again, wow, type thing. But I think everybody's just cranked up because you've got 2 teams, and really, if you look at it, the winner of this game got a very, very good shot to go ahead and push on to Arlington. I don't know exactly what Oklahoma's got, but I think it's fairly soft. And Oklahoma State's got 3 of the newbies, 2 of them on the road, arguably, at UCF and Houston, BYU at home to finish. But, yeah, if you win this game Saturday and you're Oklahoma State and you don't do your business the rest of November, it's on you.
Has Mike Gundy this year, after how last year went, and it like the Undertaker, like rising out of the coffin because a lot of people were trying to throw dirt on the program and his philosophy, and what has that meant?
Yeah, I like that reference, the Undertaker, the Halloween week and all that. Not Mike, but his wife Kristen is she has some of the best Halloween decorations in Payne County, but no, I think he's done a tremendous coaching job. It was all in the bye week. They were 2-2 coming home from Ames, Iowa. They had 4 really tough, full pad, full contact practices on the grass practice fields, and just a late infusion of toughness into this football team. Realizing what you do is important, and you got to work hard to get it. And then, of course, came off that quarterback rotation and also came off the running back rotation and went ahead and anointed Oman and Ollie Gordon. Big push there. But, no, I think Mike Gundy loves proving his critics wrong. I think that's one of the things internally he likes to do the most. And you're right. There were there were people clamoring for him to step down. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, if he stepped down, there'd be a lot of schools lining up at his door wanting him to come coach their team.
Last thing, Robert, Ollie Gordon II, I remember what he was like in high school. He was phenomenal. He's gotten his chance. Besides the obvious, what kind of adrenaline rush has he brought that football team?
Well, he's also an emotional kid. He's not like a Barry Sanders that just does it quietly. Or even, the last guy we had that really was sensational was Jalen Warren, who's at Pittsburgh now. Jalen's a very quiet guy. Ollie's a guy that, like last week when he fumbled, he put his helmet on the sidelines, and he got really as mad at himself as he gets happy with some of these touchdown runs and happy with his offensive line. He's a Pied Piper as well as being a guy that delivers on the field. So that's monumental in your locker room to have a guy that not only plays well, but gets all happy and crazy when he does because it's infectious.
John Hoover, allsooners.com, Oklahoma State Bedlam. Is it the last Bedlam the focus, or has that been completely just wiped out because of how important this almost an elimination game for either team this Saturday?
Yeah, it's a huge game because both teams are tied for first place. It's a 5-way tie atop the Big 12 Conference for first place. So lot to play for over these next few weeks. The fact that there's some hurt feelings about Oklahoma going to the SEC and Oklahoma State being left behind, kind of irrelevant. We hate to see Bedlam go, but it's kind of irrelevant. These teams have to win.
Oklahoma State seems to have gotten red hot. Not that Oklahoma hasn't played well, but last week got the hickey at KU, let that thing get away late. It was a heck of a game. How much does Ollie Gordon become the big factor in this game against OU's defense?
Well, he's the centerpiece. He's the centerpiece for both teams, for both the Oklahoma State offense and the Oklahoma defense. Danny Stutzman, the heart and soul leader of and tackles leader, of course, of the Oklahoma defense, sprained his ankle last week at KU. So there's some worry, some hesitation about his involvement this week. Is he going to be the guy that comes in there and helps that defense kind of redirect and get themselves right against the nation's leading rusher? It's crazy to think that these two elements are coming together, but could be a big day for Ollie Gordon.
John, what is the feeling of Oklahoma? What did they learn last week? I thought that when they had gotten the pick, the second one, I think, in the fourth quarter, a first down or two, and it just seemed like a run, and I'm sure that frustrated the fan base and part of the questioning after the game. Who are they?
I don't know who they are, and here's the thing, I don't think they know who they are. I asked Jeff Lebby this a few weeks ago, what's the identity of your offense? He wants to be an RPO offense, so they don't really know. They want to run and pass and always have the option. And then, we saw last week, you would think after the wake-up call, 2-point escape against Big 12 winless UCF at home, you would think that that wake-up call would have gotten them out of bed. It did not. And they slept through the Kansas game as well. So put all those things together, a little conservative on offense, double-digit missed tackles on defense, and you see the result.
What are your personal thoughts about, no matter what OU and Texas are about to do, what are your thoughts about this rivalry? You've covered it from both sidelines.
Yeah, I have. It's a brilliant in-state rivalry that is remarkably one-sided. OU has a lead of 91, 19, and 7. That's of the teams that have played 110 times in their rivalries. That's number one in the country. No team has beaten their rival or a rival more frequently than Oklahoma has beaten Oklahoma State. So having said all that, ever since the Big 12 let the scheduling situation with Nebraska, that was Oklahoma's rival forever. But ever since the Big 12 let that kind of die down, the Oklahoma State rivalry has kind of taken the place there. And it's been just as one-sided. Mike Gundy 3-15. But that tells you right there that this thing is absolutely one-sided, but it means so much to everybody in the state of Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's going to go off and they're going to create new rivalries in the SEC. Those people that they beat in the SEC, they're not going to be their neighbors out mowing their lawn that you can talk trash to while you're walking your dog. That's what's going to be missing.
When we come back, we have Grayson Grundhafer. We'll have Josh Neighbors, Sam Bradshaw, and a lot more to get to between now and 6 o'clock, including Rangers World Series pitcher and former Baylor pitcher Cody Bradford after he arrived from home late yesterday evening. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace just off of 35 in Waco. Premium quality MRIs, convenient, affordable. An average MRI cost over $1,100. Theirs will cost $400. Yours there at Ideal MRI will cost $497 or less every single time. Getting an MRI used to be time-consuming and expensive. Spending hours at the imaging center. You could wait for even weeks and months just to find out what, it had cost based on paperwork and bills and invoices that come in your way. Not anymore. IdealMRI.com will let you know right off the top. Providing convenient, luxurious experience in their state-of-the-art GE MRI suite. Your scan will be read by board-certified specialists, and it will never cost more than $497. Great experience. They made you feel very comfortable. Thank you, Ideal MRI. That's from one patient. I highly recommend them. That's from another patient. From the minute I walked through the door, I felt comfortable and cared for. That's another one. And then I've been in that machine 3 or 4 times, and it is everything everybody on the board or the website has said, because they are special and they are good, and they have a machine that will find out ligament, muscle, whatever it is that your doctor wants to know more evidence about. You get it at $497 or less at IdealMRI.com.
The
right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, is your holiday item superstore. Half spiral hams, 8 to 10 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Pit hams, 12 pounds for $4.45 a pound. Bone-in hams, 18 to 22 pounds for $3.40 per pound. Whole raw turkeys from 12 to 16 pounds for $2.50 a pound. Whole smoked turkeys, that's smoked turkeys at 9 to 12 pounds for $3.75 a pound. And mini pit hams, 6 to 8 pounds for $5.99 a pound. All items will be in stock starting on November the 8th. And don't forget, they have full service butcher shop where you can find what you want: pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. And I bring up the beef because big beef tenderloin or a prime rib. Brian Bauer and the Bauer family. Full service bakery with fresh baked kolaches every morning and bread. And cold beer and wine. Tailgate needs from pellet fuel to charcoal. Waco Custom Marketplace and the holiday items are in stock starting November the 8th at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Colgin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
Grayson Grunhaper, SicEm365.com and 365 Sports joins us on this afternoon, the show right here. And we have Grayson on Fridays at around 3:45. Grayson, thank you for your time. In your opinion, what is a malaise of a football program at this particular time? And the wins, not many of them, and a lot of losses. If they lose to Houston tomorrow, what happens with Baylor?
I mean, I think it's pretty much the same situation that they've been in. And I mean, simply put, I think the more that you kind of look at these things and the more that you kind of take a step back and you look at kind of how the season has gone in general, I think we're kind of at that point where it's like, does a win really matter and does a loss really matter? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of one of those things where, yes, there's still a possibility of making a bowl game, but I think everyone is kind of at a point now where they're trying to figure out what's next. And if that what's next step is not momentum, then what is it? You know, where can you find confidence in the football program in general going forward? Now, I think a win does matter. I've always believed that wins do matter. It doesn't matter how you get them. It matters how many you get. But at this point for Baylor, it's just about gaining confidence and finding that next direction as a team and as a program as you build towards the end of this season and into next season, if they do, in fact, miss out on making a bowl game.
Well, Grayson, the next 2 of the next 3 are their opportunity to, kind of get back on track and have a shot at the end of the year when they play West Virginia. If you don't beat Houston and a flailing TCU, then we kind of know who they are. I mean, we kind of know who they are anyway. But I don't know if you can't get up for maybe trying to save the season. I don't know what you can get up for.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and that's a great way of putting it. It's just a matter of does Baylor have? I hate saying does Baylor have the horses to do it, because I do believe they have the talent to do it. It very much seems like throughout this season, they've had points where you look at them and go, man, they should be able to win this game, like Iowa State last weekend, and then they just kind of lay an egg. And they've had 8 home games this year and have not taken, or they're going to have 8 home games in total, and they haven't taken advantage of it at all, as they're 1-5 on the season at home, which is completely unacceptable in a year where you get 8 home games. You got to take advantage of that. They have not. But you're right. I mean, they get an opportunity this weekend against the worst team, in my opinion, on their schedule in Houston. You get them at home, a chance to, get your fans excited. You got to go out and take advantage of that opportunity. And you're right. TCU is down this year. They just lost to Texas Tech last night. So you have a real opportunity to at least compete with a team that has definitely had Baylor's number over the last, 10 years, really.
All right, so Keytron Jackson's probably not going to play just based on the head injury last week. That's the assumption, at least. If he does, in fact, not play, you've always got Monterey Baldwin, as we know. But who in the world, Grayson, is going to eventually step up at wide receiver? Jackson was just starting to and immediately gets hurt. So who is the guy? I mean, it feels like I think one of the more frustrating things is it's one thing when you're young, but we got to see some development, right? And at some point, like, Josh Cameron or whoever, I mean, these guys need to start stepping up. So who do you think a good candidate for that could be coming up this weekend?
I mean, I think Josh Cameron has to be continuing to do what he's done throughout really the last 2 years, which is just be a steadying presence for them. I don't think you're going to see him go out there and have, a huge explosion of a game, but he's got to be able to catch contested catches, be able to make those plays, get first downs for this team. That's going to be really important. But I think, kind of the answer that you're probably looking for is who's going to provide maybe a spark or some juice to this passing offense without Keytron, even more so than Josh has done. And I think the 2 guys that you have to look at, in my eyes, are probably Jordan Neighbors, who's been playing running back and then motioning into the wide receiver position as well. I think he could add some explosiveness there. And then, of course, Armani Winfield, the former 4-star prospect who everyone was super excited about when he committed to Baylor, but he hasn't really had the opportunity to really excel, but I don't think he's gone out and really taken that role. And so now that he's getting an opportunity to prove himself and show what he can do, is he going to be able to take advantage of that opportunity? But I think those 2 guys are going to be the 2 focal points to adding explosiveness. And then you just need Josh Cameron to kind of continue doing what he's been doing, along with, of course, the tight ends, who I think will be utilized pretty heavily in this matchup.
So these are young men. They're on scholarship. They're good kids, good young men. But if you're a wide receiver in the last couple of years at Baylor and you haven't pushed through to have a chance or have not found a way to get more receptions or playing time, what does that say?
I think that it's one of those situations where you probably haven't developed completely as a player. And I think that whether that's from a blocking standpoint, a physicality standpoint, a route running standpoint, or catching the football, those 4 things seem to be really important to this Baylor offense. And when you watch them play, it's pretty evident. When you watch Josh Cameron play, he blocks people, he's extremely physical, and he catches the football. And so when you're doing 3 things like that, it's hard to take him off the field for even a guy who maybe has more talent but isn't quite living up to those expectations. So, I mean, Armani's going to get his shot this week, and he's going to have to take advantage of that. And if he does, then I think he could carve out a role going into next year, alongside Hal Presley and Keytron Jackson and, of course, Monterey Baldwin.
Grayson Grundhaber with us, 365 Sports. Grayson, the Houston offense, they're capable of taking a kickback for a touchdown or a punt back for a touchdown on every time if they get kickoffs and punts. But the explosiveness, don't they have like 4 Monterey Baldwins in their offense, even though they struggle in many other ways?
To a certain extent. I'm not sure they're quite as explosive as Monterey Baldwin, but they do have similar guys who kind of provide stability to their receiving core and are tough to defend. You know, you got Joseph Manjack, who was an underrated guy, but he catches a ton of passes for this team. He plays a lot of slot. He's just one of those guys that's always open. And Baylor has had a lot of trouble guarding guys like that, really over the past 2 years, to be honest. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on. And then the guy who's my personal favorite of their receiving core is Matthew Golden. He was the guy who I felt like Baylor should have recruited more heavily coming out of high school. They decided not to. Or else I do think there's probably a pretty high chance that he would have ended up being a Baylor Bear. But when you watch him play, very explosive athlete, good in the return game as well, becoming more and more each year, becoming more of a complete wide receiver. And I think when you see those signs early in a career like we have with him, that provides a lot of evidence about what he's going to do in the future. So he's definitely going to be the other one in my eyes to watch. I think he's a very, very good player for that offense.
Grayson, thank you very much for your time. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com, co-host of the Bearcast with Craig, also football analyst, recruiting analyst for the entire umbrella of what we do.
Yeah, I tried to ask that question as concise as I could, but I guess the basic gist, guys, I'm getting at is I'm tired of hearing about who could do something. Like, at some point, you need to do something. And since when did it take like a couple of years to develop guys that just simply be able to catch a couple balls each week? You know what I mean? Like, what is this suddenly, like, this long, slow developing, like, development process? I mean, I get it takes a little bit of time, but I mean, I think that's one of the concerning things to me is like, oh, well, we're just young. It's like, okay, well, when are the young? It's 8 games in. Like, when are the young guys going to like actually show something, more consistently? And so that's what I was trying to get at. I mean, we hear these names of these guys, but you look at the box scores, and there are things like blocking that aren't necessarily, in those categories, those columns with numbers, because you don't have those like you have receiving yards. But yeah, it's just if you're looking at the future and bright spots, all right, where are the playmakers? And it's Monterey Baldwin, and then beyond that, it was Keytron Jackson for like a split second, and then he got hurt. So, yeah.
Richard Reese has 59 total
That
touches.
still doesn't make any sense. I don't care what Dave Aranda
receiving.
says about their blocking and all. That still makes absolutely no sense to me that he's got so few carries. He has to be hurt in my mind to some degree, and if not, then it really doesn't make any sense to me. I get he doesn't need to have as many carries as he had last year, but he's going to have like half as many carries as he had last year, and that's just such a dramatic drop-off when he was such a huge part of what you did that I get the run game, you're running into a wall, but you got to find a way to get him the football, man. Like, that's
especially when you're moving Jordan Neighbors back there sometime, it makes you wonder, like, well, what's he going to do compared to what recent? Like, I just have those questions. And the problem that they run into with, Keytron and Hal Presley both now out is that while Monterey Baldwin is your playmaker, he's also not the guy who's going to go up and win against a bigger defensive back.
No.
He's one who's going to run past those guys.
Yeah.
He's going to go. Yeah. So, it's got to be Josh Cameron's got to go up and get the ball. And they're going to have to find, like, Armani Winfield's going to have to step up. I mean, like, a
lot of guys, you know what a prospect is, potential is? It means you haven't done it. Or maybe have not been given that opportunity. Do you know what the longest run from scrimmage has been this year for Baylor? Just guess, Garrett. I'll start with you.
Maybe like 30 yards at best.
Craig?
4 yards. No, I'm just kidding. Like 24 yards.
Paul, longest rushing?
29 yards.
You guys are really close. 32, 31, 28, and 31.
And they give up at
nothing
least
else after that.
At least a couple of those
game.
runs a game, if not more than a couple of those types of runs a game. So therein lies, a root of your problems is you can't run, you can't stop the run. And Houston's not a great running team, but they do have some playmakers at receiver and at quarterback. So we'll see tomorrow. That'll be an interesting game with two teams in very similar positions, but it would be a huge win for Houston against a new, against a traditional Big 12 school.
Speaking of Houston, Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle. He's in Waco. By the time we hit him up, he'll be joining us today at 4:45. Retired stockbrokers in Waco later on this evening here for the Houston game against Baylor. Hope to be able to see him at some point this weekend. Sam Bradshaw breaks down the two teams, their tendencies, and more. World Series pitcher Cody Bradford. Mike Scarborough joins us at 5:30 on LSU from that perspective against Alabama. Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty and his staff can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be. What happens as you grow older, it just kind of takes over. Father time, 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It's nothing that you've done. It just starts to dip. Some people have high blood pressure. Some people have other issues. You might be the one, unfortunately, with testosterone levels that have dropped. But there's a way. There's an option to get that back where it needs to be, the level of your testosterone. Dr. Petty, contact him. PettyClinicalOT.com. There's a phone number and email on the website, on the homepage. Contact him and the staff and tell them that I sent you. Dr. Kent Petty will pay for you to go get your blood work, lab work. He'll get the results, look at your testosterone, and if the level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at PettyClinicalOT.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Josh Neighbors, 365 Sports, the Big 12 watch. Big 12 with a really good weekend. And even the game with BYU and West Virginia with some implications. But then there's K-State, Texas, Iowa State, Kansas, and Oklahoma State, and OU in Bedlam. And Josh joins us, Craig and Paul, I'm David Smoak. Josh, of those three, which is the one you would want to go watch in person?
I think you'd have to do the last version of Bedlam, right? Because just I think the atmosphere is going to be unbelievable, and I think the intrigue too. I wonder about Oklahoma's chances to still maybe make a college ball playoff. I don't think the team is that quality, but still, their chances to, win 10 games, win 10, 11 games. I mean, we thought the schedule would be pretty easy, and now, it's gotten harder for them. And Ollie Gordon, obviously, too, on a Barry Sanders type heater. So I think seeing somebody who's that hot against a team with that much on the line for Oklahoma, under the Big 12 circumstances right now, in a rivalry like this, last time around in Stillwater, it's too good of an opportunity to pass up. And I think too, Mike Gundy's lost this game a whole lot, but I think a lot of folks would forgive him for a lot of those losses if they get this one done tomorrow.
The most games that, at least for the foreseeable future in their history, that they won against Oklahoma could be 20. If they win tomorrow, that would give them their 20th win in 128 tries or whatever it is against OU. Is Oklahoma playing bad enough right now to where you think that this game could get away from them, or do the last 2 weeks wake them up a little bit?
Well, it's a combination. It has to wake you up when you come off, you come off that performance you had against Texas, and then ever since then, even after the bye, they've kind of gone downhill. And I remember watching that UCF game a few weeks ago, and Dusty Dvorak was on it. He was talking about the Oklahoma run defense, and while numerically it hasn't been terrible, there's some gaps in it, and UCF exposed it a bit. Kansas really did a good job exposing it, and they're so good at exposing the weaknesses. That's really what KU does well. They got a variety of guys who are really good, but the scheme is what allows them to do it, getting those guys in those spots. This challenge tomorrow is a different kind, though, right? Because, and look, Oklahoma State, they do a few things to make it, look tricky sometimes, but they run a lot of counter and a lot of zone. So it's not too complicated. And Oklahoma kind of knows what's coming at them. And it's strange because we see these games where a Kansas takes on a Texas or an OU, and their best shot is you have to scheme and try to, make things even because physically you don't have an advantage. But last week, guys, I couldn't tell much of a difference. Kansas looked up to the challenge physically against Oklahoma, and that's not something that we've seen in a while. And for an offensive line that's blocking this well for Oklahoma State, I am a little worried for them. But at the same time, too, if Oklahoma finds a way to stop the run a bit, Oklahoma State, their day could be short too, because Alan Bowman, they haven't had to put a game on him yet. And if they do, I don't really feel very confident in saying, hey, that's a guy who can go win you a big ball game like Bedlam. He hasn't had to be that guy yet. Maybe he could, who knows? But I think the big story is he hasn't had to be that guy yet. And that's kind of the strategy for them. So, yeah, there's some concerns on both sides, but Oklahoma State is the peaking team for sure right now. But I feel like Oklahoma has more paths to a victory compared to Oklahoma State.
All right, so down in Austin, got K-State and Texas, another huge one on a massive weekend for the Big 12 schedule and implications and whatnot. Clearly, K-State's feeling pretty good about the way that they've just been destroying people the last couple of weeks, the 2-quarterback system and all that jazz. But going down to Austin, I feel like home field matters here, Josh. But what were your thoughts on Malik Murphy, and what are your balances as far as like who favors what and where and how when it comes to the game tomorrow in Austin?
Yeah, so the one thing Texas has done exceptionally this year is stop the run. Nobody has really run the football on them except for Dylan Gabriel, but I don't look at the Dylan Gabriel performance and think about that in terms of like a super repeatable. If anybody were able to do it, maybe it's the combination of Will Howard and also Avery Johnson, who's a tremendous runner. But nobody really does that well. Against Texas front. And that's the one thing about they want to be the more physical team. Texas on the defensive line has been really, better than most of the teams they've played offensive line-wise this year. So that's the one concern. But you do have to think, hey, man, if you are able to make some plays, and look, BYU's defense made a few plays last week against Malik Murphy, you're in good shape. I am curious, though, how much did Sark keep in his bag for this week, right? BYU is not they're 5-3, sure, but it's not a really good football team. And so I think that they knew that they kind of, hide some stuff and hide some weaknesses and not take as many chances, I guess, last week. This week they might have to, right? Will Howard and company and Avery Johnson and the way that offense is working right now, both quarterbacks might be able to put you in a few more trickier situations. So I'm wondering, are they hiding stuff? Are they keeping some stuff left in reserve? But also, too, do they even have that luxury? Like, are they concerned about what they can run with Malik Murphy at this point? He's got tremendous physical tools. They did not use him much as a runner last week. As a passer, you can still do some things. I also think it speaks to the quality of Quinn Ewers and kind of just he's a really good operator of that offense. And there is a very apparent difference when those two guys are playing. But Jonathan Brooks for them is a bell cow. And I think regardless of who's playing quarterback, everything starts with them trying to run the ball, trying to establish him, and they build off everything from there. I'm wondering, though, if in the game script to start things off first 15 plays, maybe they go a bit more on Murphy just to get him in the flow of things. But I think in the end of the day, it's going to come back to Brooks. They're going to try to run the football. And then also, too, we'll see if Murphy's forced into making some more challenging, difficult throws.
Okay, let's talk through this Kansas and Iowa State game a little bit, Josh, because I'm a little I'm puzzled on this one. Part of me leans towards picking Iowa State because they're at home. They're very, an efficient team, while nothing spectacular, and Ames is a tough place to play. But I just feel like Kansas has more to go with right now, so that's why I picked Kansas. Tell me why I'm right or wrong.
Well, this one's really, really challenging to handicap because Kansas football doesn't have many big wins. And they had one of the biggest in program history last week. And so Lance Leipold is this unbelievable coach, but I'm not even sure Lance can keep his team from a letdown. And I mean, going to Jack Trice Stadium is like the ultimate letdown spot. There's a reason why Iowa State's favored. If you take this thing from a personnel standpoint, even with Jason Bean, quarterback, for Kansas, he's a backup, but still, you think about what's happening on the other side of things, like Iowa State's roster. It's weird to say this, but Kansas State has a better roster. Iowa State's playing really well, though, and defensively, they've been great. And overall, in terms of totals, they have the most efficient defense in the conference. I think if you just take conference games, they're third. But they've got 3 back-to-back-to-back double-digit wins. And look, it's over bottom teams on some of them, But, we thought Iowa State would be a bottom team, and they're not. I mean, if you're handling lesser opponents and taking care of your business, that means, you're not a bottom team. And look, guys, there's a chance for Matt Campbell's crew to get to 6 wins. And, even after the Ohio, forget the beginning of the season, after the Ohio loss, and Matt Campbell's yelling at a fan, on the side of those really flimsy ropes or whatever. I mean, how long ago does that feel now that Iowa State's on the verge of making a bowl game? And guys, if they win tomorrow, they're going to be tied with, potentially 1 or 2 other teams for first place in the Big 12 with 3 weeks left in the season, which I think on its own deserves Coach of the Year, consideration. So I'm leaning Iowa State in this game because it's a really difficult spot for Kansas. I don't know how much of an emotional, physical kind of letdown there's going to be, but man, it's hard to beat a team like Oklahoma and have all that happen and go on the road next week against an Iowa State team that's just playing as well as they have been. And here's the thing, too, guys. If the game's on the line in the fourth quarter, I know he led a game-winning drive last week, but Jason Bean's not been very good. I mean, he's very lucky he got the ball back last week and got a chance to go and take the lead because those interceptions, he was seeing some ghosts out there. And that's not uncommon. I mean, we saw it against Oklahoma State. Same thing happened for him. So, he's not been the best under the most pressure-filled situations so far. And Iowa State and Jack Trice Stadium, I mean, they can put the pressure on you. So I'm leading Iowa State for that reason, although I think Kansas has a better roster and better players.
So some history will be made in Cincinnati. Either the Bearcats, the hometown team, are going to get their first Big 12 win, or UCF's going to get their first Big 12 win. What are your thoughts here, Josh, on the Knights versus the Bearcats? And somebody's got to win their first Big 12 game contest.
Ironically, right, either Cincinnati or UCF's going to win their first Big 12 game against somebody, an American team, right? So, I mean, it's kind of weird. Look, in no circumstance, and I've told Paul this basically every Friday, will I pick on Emory Jones. If you are going to let him roll out there as quarterback, my money will be, it is every week against him. And hey, Maybe he'll win one eventually. I don't know. But you can't keep trotting Emory Jones out there and expecting to win Power 5 football games. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked yet. And last time it did against Pitt. And, guys, that was a long time ago. That was the second week of the season. So, I think this is a weird spot, though, because UCF's been playing some decent ball at times. But, look, they're learning, too. Like, they've got really good skill players. I think, you think about Harvey and Townsend and, Baker. I mean, all of these guys they have, these dudes all play at a Power 5 level. They're Power 5 players. The problem for them is the trenches, the defense, the tackling. It felt like last week they were in a tough time getting off the field on third downs and coverage and whatnot. And look, John Rice Plumlee was pretty effective last week for the most part, but every throw he missed at one point of the game was an interception. I think he was 16 of 19 at one point with 3 picks. So, I trust the playmakers on the UCF side a lot more than I trust Cincinnati, although I think Cincinnati fans are probably frustrated because it feels like in a lot of games for them this year, they've been better than some of the teams that they've played. The results just have not been there for them. So I will take UCF, and hey, if Cincinnati wins the game, sure, but I'm going to take UCF. Gus Malzahn, I think, better coach, better quarterback, and at this point in time, it's just hard to pick Emory Jones.
Look, the one thing you say about John Rice Plumlee is that if he throws the ball to somebody, he's going to catch it. It's not going to hit the ground. Okay, Josh, what are your thoughts on TCU and Tech last night?
That's some of the worst tackling I've seen in a football game in a long time. I mean, it was, they were playing off. And, like, when you play off, you want to be able to finish the play. And it was an old school Big 12 game. I'll say this about Texas Tech. That's when they had to have, and I'm not too worried about Texas Tech and Joey McGuire and whatnot. And I think that their decision to run the football more often now is a smart one that they need to carry forward into the future, because that pace and just chucking it is not the right decision all the time. And that pace, and you can run it some too, but running it with the quarterback as much as they did is not going to work, because they played 6 quarterbacks in the last 2 years. And have had a bunch of quarterbacks go down. And Morton finally looked healthy last night. His shoulder looked good. I thought he took care of the ball pretty well yesterday. And Xavier White had a really nice game too. So good win for Tech. On the TCU side of things, man, that defense was supposed to be a strength, and it just has not been. I actually think Josh Hoover is going to end up being pretty good wherever he goes. But TCU needs to address that quarterback spot in the portal, I think, or at least give some competition. I think Hoover's good. He just threw. I mean, that last interception was appalling, absolutely appalling. But you remember the kid's 18, right? Or 19, whatever he is. He's a freshman, so he's got the ability to operate that offense, I think. And I was surprised because they couldn't run the ball effectively. And we know Kendall Briles, as much as they veer and shoot, and they like pace too. That is an offense that wants to run the ball, as you all know very, very well. And they were not able to do it last night. So the fact that Hoover was good enough to keep him in the game is good, but I think if Hoover stays, you got to bring him in some stiff competition. Once again, he's a freshman, so he will get better, and I think he's good enough to play at this level. But if you're TCU, if you want to get back to where you were, and I'm not even just saying, national championship, you've got the resources to bring in better players. So I do think that's something that they've got to focus on. And, they put a lot of chips forward to get Kendall Briles there. That offense needs to be better. And I'm not sure how much of a pass I give them, overall, even with the backup quarterback in there. They should be a lot better than they are.
Hoover had a game last night like Texas Tech's true freshman had when they had the injuries. And, he chunked the ball a lot. But when you're a freshman, I don't care if you're Peyton Manning or whoever, you throw the ball 52 times in a game, you're going to throw a couple of bad picks. And the last one, of course, was not the last one. The one before that was deadly at that particular time. Josh, thank you very much for the time. On Fridays, Josh Neighbors, Paul's buddy, 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio, and the Neighborhood Watch, which is now the Big 12 Watch, which will change the name in 3 months and we'll not know about it.
It's on Crystal Ball College Football. He just changed it this last week.
What's the name of the show?
The channel it's on is our Crystal Ball College Football channel.
Okay.
And so the name of the show is now Big 12 Watch, and it's just changed here in the last week. So,
okay. I never got that. Did you get that email, Craig, about the name of the show? No. We're traveling on Fridays. We're traveling. We'll have Sam Bradshaw around the corner, analyst, and also the trends of Houston and what he thinks Houston can do or can't, or Baylor vice versa, with the game coming up tomorrow at 2:30. Our pregame tomorrow will be really early, like at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning until 11:30, much earlier than normal because of the programming on the CW. So we'll be on pretty early tomorrow to do that and then move on from there. Now, do we have, I know we have, Sam, the Pac-12, not the Pac-2, released a statement, the 10 that are leaving, or whatever number it is, and this is basically, we're committed. You never know with conference names and titles and numbers anymore. The Big 12 has 16. We are committed to supporting the needs and interests of our universities, on and on. But what they're saying is that, wait a minute, Washington State and Oregon State might have all this $200 million to play with themselves, and so they've now filed like an injunction or whatever, and this thing continues to go on and on and on.
Yeah, look, this was not going. I mean, it's going to last a long time. I know that there was some thought that like this could go quickly because there has to be a decision made.
It's happening.
Yeah, nothing's happening. I mean, this is there's nothing going to be happening until they saw this out. There's 10 schools against 2, which means that there are 10 schools that can throw their opinion in this thing and say, no, we're going to try to slow this down, which is exactly what they're going to try to do. But
does USC and UCLA have a voice in this thing? I thought they lost that when they left, when they announced it a year ago or 2 years ago.
Well, that's what's up for debate over who has a say in the end of this.
All in the bylaws.
Because what they're all alleging is like, look, there are some things we've got to work out, sure, but your idea that you're going to keep all this money that we were going to have before is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty clear in Kliavkoff's comments that he found himself in a little bit of a foot and mouth, or, they had set a precedent, or at least that's the argument for Oregon State and Washington State, that the precedent had been set when USC and UCLA left, that they were no longer voting board members. And so when the other schools announced, and there's even debates about what's an official announcement and what was an official withdrawal, and like that's how tedious this whole story is. Like everything is being argued. Like when they said they were going to the new destination, depending on what school we're talking about, did that take away all of their rights when it came to being a member of the Pac-12? Well, the argument is, well, for UCLA and USC, it did effectively. That it took away their voting rights. So now with all of these other schools announcing officially or unofficially, again, even that's debated, does that mean that they did in effect the same thing and that a precedent had been set, and therefore they would be treated just like USC and UCLA were treated by the others when that decision was made? They obviously would argue, no, it's not the same thing, but that's where the whole argument lies. So they're going to have to use the court systems to figure it out, and I know that there's talks about, mediation and finding some way to settle so that everybody can go their separate ways and get, at least a little bit of what they want, and nobody's going to probably get everything that they want, although Oregon State and Washington State would stand to benefit by far the most from getting everything that they want. There is the question of, and again, it's all very, kind of tedious, the arguments here, because it gets down into the depths of just opinion, really, because the courts will ultimately decide. But on Twitter, like, no, I interpret it this way. No, I interpret, and so it gets into that. And so it's kind of hard to see through all of that. But yeah, there is an argument, for Oregon State and Washington State based on what I said about the members withdrawing and how that was treated with USC and UCLA. But also, yeah, if you're these other 10 schools, you're not just going to give up all this money, especially like this school year. You're still in the Pac-12. You're still earning money. And so, what happens to that? But what happens beyond that, it's the center of the entire question and how everything moves forward for the Pac-12 and whether that's, a new Pac-12 or whether that's an independent Oregon State and Washington State or whether that's a this or a that. That's the end game is finding everybody's spots. But until they get all this sorted out and the money settled on, then it's going to continue to be an argument in the courts. And so that's where we remain right now.
Okay, so when USC and UCLA left, the remaining 10, all of them went, well, they shouldn't have a vote, right? And then all of a sudden, 8 of them are leaving, and it's like, well, wait a minute, no, it's different because we're now involved.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't know if it's that black and white, but yeah, it's basically that.
And look, USC and UCLA, who are involved in this because some of this is their money, because they're not out until the end of the year either. They're all leaving at the same time. So they're all leaving when the contract is up. So their argument is like, look, we submitted the paperwork that this we're not going to be. And when George Kliavkoff made that comment, And also, can we really trust everything that he says? Okay, was he saying, yes, they're not voting members that are making decisions? Yeah, it could have been like Texas and Oklahoma, though, where when it came to stuff that wasn't going to involve them anymore, they're like, yeah, we'll go ahead and leave the room. We're fine. We don't need to be here. We're cool. But when it came to stuff that involved them, like the property that they all own together, then of course they're in the room. Oregon State and Washington State is trying to say that, that applied to everything. I think that's where they're going to get caught up, is that, like, no. If you guys are going to make decisions about things that are going to happen June 30th, 2024 and on, sure, do whatever you want. We don't care. But if you're talking about stuff that's going to happen while we're here, or things that we had been counting on contractually
but those
taking.
Eight said the same thing. They didn't think USC and UCLA should have a vote.
No, George Kliavkoff said that.
Oh, okay.
George Kliavkoff's the one who said it. That's where it's going to get caught up in the
There's a
wash.
lot of, like it just said in that statement, and I didn't get a chance to read all of it, but there's a part in there about like the interpretation by Oregon State and Washington State. A lot of this is coming down to interpretations of the top right. The lawsuit stems from a flawed interpretation of the Pac-12 bylaws, so that's where this argument is like the 10 schools say, no, this is what that means. The other two are saying, no, this is what that means. And they're arguing over what it means because it means a lot, because it means either all 10 are going to get chunks of money or 2 are going to get a bunch of it. And obviously that matters in their futures, in particular for those two, not having the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the ACC to even go to right now.
They may decide this before June 30th of 2024. God knows it might go on after that, which is crazy. All right, when we come back, Sam Bradshaw on the tendencies of Baylor and Houston. This ought to be interesting. Also, a little bit later on, Joseph Duarte on Houston in this game. After the pretty damn good performance against Texas, they laid an egg and they were flattened by K-State last weekend. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They got a lot of exciting things going on right now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on for great customer service, for great offers, and for great options when it comes to your vehicle and getting it fixed up, or when it comes to the vehicle that you want to get into, whether it's a new or a pre-owned. And right now they've got a lot of construction out there on Highway 6 out in front of the dealership, so they're trying to make it easier for you to buy a new Buick GMC or Cadillac, and that includes the perfect combination of first-class luxury and value like no other SUV with the Buick. And their lineup ranked #1 overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers. Buick offers amazing value. Right now, save $5,000 on a new full-size 2023 Buick Enclave model, or save $4,000 on a 2023 midsize Buick Envision model. And military and first responders will save an additional $500, plus qualified Buick buyers get 1.9% financing, no payments until 2024. So there's just one of their new offerings. But also, they are in the market for trading and getting the best pre-owned vehicles possible. They trade for the best, so they have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock. The financing goal is 100% credit approval, and they say yes when others say no. You can also check out their award-winning service department, right now offering a price match guarantee on the lowest price comparable tires in town. So service your car or truck with the people that you can count on over at Richard Carr. So buying new, buying pre-owned, or just getting your car fixed up. They've been in business for 24 years in Central Texas and have built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at Baylor.edu/alumni.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations that will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingram at the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
He is known. It's like, there's certain athletes that just have a name. They use a name. Like what Tiger? They have one name. It's not their full name. S11 is Sam Bradshaw, but we have to say his name just to make sure you know who that is. If you don't, he's an analyst, data, analytics, etc., and also watches the teams that Baylor will play and also break both teams down. Sam, great to have you on the show. It's nice to talk to you. Craig is here with us because we have no high school game. So who's more explosive on offense, Houston or more dangerous, Houston or Baylor?
Thanks for having me. Houston's probably a little more explosive just because you can rely on them to protect their passer a little bit more and be able to get the ball off. Both teams have some explosive dudes. I mean, Monterey Baldwin certainly has a lot of explosive potential for Baylor, and Ketron Jackson. But both teams have the ability to hit the big play. And Houston with Golden, with Manjack, and with Sam Brown, you've got an awful lot of speed there as well as its tailback position. They can hit some big plays on people, and that's one of their MOs. In order to be able to stop these guys, you have to keep those big plays in check.
Sam, you mentioned that, look, it was kind of the way you responded to that question, it took you a long time to figure out what that was. These are 2 bad teams. What do either of them do well enough that the other one could not stop?
Well, looking at this matchup, I look at the Houston offense, and that's an offense that's been very productive against basically anybody not named Kansas State or TCU. And both of those teams run a variation of that Iowa State, keep everybody in front of you, defend the run inside, don't allow the big play, live to see another down, but do it out of a multiple coverage look. I think they've had a track record this year of being pretty productive offense across the board. And while their defense hadn't necessarily been good the last couple of weeks, it's done a better job of limiting the big plays that absolutely broke them through the early part of the season. For those that aren't as familiar with the Cougars, when they had the bye week before the game against the University of Texas, they completely overhauled their defense. Prior to that bye week, they were a 4-down, smaller defensive end, smaller interior D lineman, attacking You have effectively a third corner at nickel. You have safeties that can single cover. We're going to blitz you. We're going to offer single coverage. We're going to inflict negative plays. And then when they came out against Texas, and it was a big reason of why they were able to stay in it against that offense that the Longhorns were bringing to bear, overnight they switched into, we're going to have 3 big defensive linemen up front that we're going to just try and live this fight another down against the run there. And we are going to play a lot of coverage. And outside of a couple plays, I think Texas got a fade route on them once when they got a little greedy in coverage and offered single coverage to them. But outside of that, they really slowed Texas down. And then Kansas State just dominated them in the trenches. So no matter what approach you have, that's not going to really work out for you if you can't hold up at the point of attack. But they've gotten a lot better at denying the big play on the defensive side of the ball. So they've become a little bit of a different animal to deal with than you would have expected a couple weeks back. Because I remember I was on the show with Paul saying that I felt like Houston was a better opportunity for a win than Cincinnati was. And I still feel that way. It had Houston not changed their defense, but now I'm kind of second guessing it because I feel like their new defensive scheme is a tougher nut for Baylor to crack than the old one.
So if you're Baylor, Sam, how do you think they try to go about cracking that defensive Houston change and trying to find some gold on the other side?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for redemption for a lot of that offense after the game against Iowa State. Now, Iowa State is an awful lot better at running this style of defense than Houston is. They've got people more suited to it. They've been recruited to it. They've been running it since 2017 instead of running it for a grand total of 17 days. You've got a big difference here, but a lot of the ways you have to attack them are going to be very similar. And then just some of the traits that Houston's had during their games against Texas and K-State, and then also in their prior team as well, is they've been pretty poor at getting off the field on third down. So Baylor should be able to get some offense going. They should be able to get some running game going. They should be able to move it between the 20s really effectively. I'm just wanting to see this Baylor team that's struggled in the red zone all year. They've got to cash in for points. I predicted something along the lines of like 34-23 Houston for this game. But included in that is 5 scoring opportunities for Baylor. I'm just predicting they're not going to convert that many of them into touchdowns instead of field goals.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And kind of in this day and age of the way the games go so fast, a lot of points scored in yards, losing 4 points when the other team scores 7 and you're kicking field goals is a great way to lose, especially when you're not very good right now in the first place. Do they have Houston in your way? Any thoughts about a run game threat at all?
Can Houston run the ball?
Yeah.
I think they're not a great running team, but as far as the matchup goes with Baylor, I've seen some teams that haven't necessarily been great run teams be able to generate some run yards against Baylor because Baylor's been so inconsistent with their run fits. So I expect Houston will try them out on a number of things. I know, for instance, counter is absolutely going to be making an appearance. Counter has been one that Baylor's struggled to fit in numerous games this year, and Houston will use Donovan Smith on a quarterback counter. And then they'll also tag the running back going on a toss play the other direction. And that's one of the staples they've enjoyed this year. Baylor absolutely has to shut that down. They got to shut down zone. They got to shut down power. It's there because Houston's going to test them with the run game because Holgerson is a Mike Leach disciple. He's an air raid guy, but he's an air raid guy that believes in running the football. He wants to line up and hit you. He wants to be able to do that. Don't get me wrong, his passing concepts are the same, and if you give him favorable looks to throw it 60 times a game, he's going to do it until you stop it. But compared to some of the other air raid guys, this is a guy that absolutely will run the football down your throat if you let him. And Baylor's got to be able to prove they can do it consistently because even against some of the not elite running teams they faced this year, they've really struggled to be consistent in that regard.
Well, that was Iowa State last week, right?
Exactly. I mean, Iowa State's intentional about running the ball, but they haven't really been statistically prolific. And there were a number of plays there where they ripped off long. And there were also a number of plays where Baylor was inconsistent with their coverage. Corners got caught peeking in the backfield. And if Iowa State was a little faster than they were, which Houston definitely is, a lot of those plays could have been touchdowns instead of big plays. So Baylor absolutely has to clean it up. The performance they had last week would not be sufficient to win this game. They have to play much better.
Sam, the running game has been atrocious to the point they don't even try to run the football all that often. You know, it just depends on the opponent, really. And so we'll see against Houston. But Dave Aranda was asked about Richard Reese and the fact that, you know, he's going to finish with like half the amount of carries that he had last year. Now, he needed to not have as many carries because as a true freshman, he had way too many probably, right? But, I mean, to the extent of like we hardly even see this guy, it's just head-scratching. He mentioned specifically it has to do with the line and just what they're doing, but is there not do you buy that? Is that as simple as it is and I just don't know X's and O's, or is there not a better way to try to get the ball in the hands of the Big 12 newcomer of the year last year?
Well, first and foremost, you're looking at, can you run the ball? Well, if you're not able to run the ball, your entire running back rotation is not going to get as many carries because you're going to try and find the best way to move the ball. And if that's not working for you, particularly the last couple games where you've been up against a really outstanding defensive front from Cincinnati, and then you've been up against a really outstanding defensive front from Iowa State, things are going to be a little tougher. But also included in that is other members of that rotation have been making some plays in their presence felt. I mean, Richard Reese is a very productive running back, but he's also 180 pounds, and Dominic Richardson and Dawson Pendergrass are a lot bigger. They're going to fall forward more consistently, and if you know you're not getting much of anything, and those running backs are going to have to create what they get, particularly in short yardage, you're probably going to lean on the bigger dude. That's just a matter of situational calls. And then beyond that, you know, he's a great wide zone runner, and I think he's really, really talented. But if you're doing wide zone and there's nowhere to go front side and they're taking away the cutback, there's really not a whole lot for you to do unless you can get them the ball in the passing game. And then from there, which back gives you the best chance in the passing game? Which one can protect the best? Which one can run the routes the best? It becomes a bit of a competing within the rotation. And it's not necessarily that somebody's not a great runner or not this or that. It's just in the aggregate, what gives you the best chance to win with the best 11 on the field at the given time with what you do have. And sometimes the decisions that are made at a given position aren't necessarily, if we had really good personnel around you, who would we go to? Sometimes it's, all right, we know we don't have X, so we need to put Y in the game to give ourselves a chance, even though Z would be a better person if we had personnel we wish we had.
Sam, last thing, if you don't mind, maybe in a minute or two, Houston can take it deep in the return game with Golden, among others, Brown. They are a threat to go on a punt return or a kick return, too. Is that one of the things that could be a difference maker?
That can definitely be a difference maker for them. They've got a lot of speed. And you also got to watch for trick plays with this group. Holgerson has been more than willing to run those long in his career. And, you know, you've really got to watch out because speed kills, and they've got a lot of it. Now, Baylor does too, but I feel like Houston's a little more wide open in their scheme, and I feel like Baylor's defensive approach right now and their youth on defense is more prone to giving up big plays. So I think Baylor can definitely win this, but they've got to play a lot better. They've got to be a lot sharper because while neither team's really good, both teams have the speed for big plays to pile up in a hurry.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Sam, great to hear from you. Sikkim365.com and 365 Sports analyst and trends, data, etc. in Sam Bradshaw.
Yeah, I appreciate
Joseph Duarte's next.
I appreciate his explanation there on the Richard Reese thing, and it's valid. Mm-hmm. But if your offense is to the point where you can't even run your best running back, that's damning in itself, is it not?
No.
Yeah. Like, hey, sorry, we can't use
but we
him.
Can't do it.
Yeah, we can't do what we're supposed to do because we're not good at it, so we can't use. And I said the newcomer of the year. I was wrong. It was the freshman of the year. Excuse me, Big 12 freshman of the year. But we can't even use this guy because he's not well equipped enough to do certain things, and because we're not good enough to do the things that he's good at. So we're not even going to use him. Basically, like that in itself is so damning to where this offense is right now. That
this is what we do. This is how we can win, but we can't do it.
Yeah. I have a bunch of stuff that we got for the wedding, like in my kitchen that's really cool. But, you know, since it's just me and my wife most nights, I can't really cook everything in a food processor and, you know, all that. But I'm dying to use it, but
Are you scared to use
Works
it?
great.
Or you're scared to use it like they're scared to be able to run their offense because you're going to get browbeat because that's dirty dishes.
No, not necessarily. It's just like when you put something, like if you're going to make something in like the gigantic food processor, which maybe I went a little bit too big on what I asked for, but this gigantic food processor, it's got to be for more than the two of us. You're talking about like if I made, like say I made tomato soup at it and I'd process these tomatoes, it would be, Campbell's would call me and be like, hey, you have some overflow?
Yeah.
Can
you bottle? Can you can it and send it back
but
to us?
This is just such a wasted year.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you're Richard Reese, you're like, are you going to just trust that it's a better offensive line next year? Or are you going to say, like, I'm going to go somewhere where I might not be the sole back, but I know I'm going to get carries and I'm not going to have to worry about, like, just the guys around me not being effective enough. I don't know. That's just, I don't know. That's not good.
All right, when we come back, Joseph Duarte on the Houston Take with Dana Holgerson. The Cougars coming into town in a game or a series reunited after the end of the Southwest Conference. And then Cody Bradford of the Rangers. They celebrated the parade earlier today. And Mike Scarborough on LSU, Alabama. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. The holiday season is here, and here is what I received today from Ted Teague. Check out all of what you have left on the lot, and there's a bunch of new cars and a bunch of pre-owned, but here's some other deals for you. 2022 Dodge Challenger Wide Body Scat Pack Shaker with under 2,000 miles, ready for immediate delivery for $56,990. Experience luxury at its finest. The 2019 BMW X7 Drive 50i with low miles, massaging seats, and rear entertainment for only $55,780. Check out the extensive selection of Ram certified 1,500 trucks with 18 to choose from. You know you'll find what you need. If that's what you want, they have a great deal for you. Luxury in the 2014 Lexus GS350. Only 45,000 miles for only $23,900. Come by and test drive that today at the dealership. I'll give you the address in a moment. Jeep certified 2020 Jeep Wrangler Sahara. Price to move at $39,990. 10% off. You heard that right. 10% off on all new Ram 2500s, 3500s in stock. All of them in stock at 10% off right now. Go by Alan Samuels, Ted Teague, the GM and CEO, the great staff they have helping you. Service department, fantastic. Finance department, fantastic. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
We have discussed Michigan a little bit during the show. By the way, Hawaii, Wayne, Super Bowl buddy, been to all these Super Bowls with us. We've seen him a lot. He was watching us yesterday on 365 Sports, he and his wife. Great to have you watching Wayne. Super Bowl Wayne is a great friend of the show.
Wayne.
Absolutely.
For watching.
Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle. We've had Joseph on many times back even before the realignment when Houston was added among others. He joins us on 365 Sports. You know, Joseph, we've talked about this game and 2 bad teams right now, and Houston coming off what happened. Baylor's in a malaise or a free fall. Houston, though, to me, has explosiveness. Is that still what they can go to on occasion?
Well, as long as you're not looking at the Kansas State tape.
Oops.
There's
an explosion, but it wasn't the good kind. Yeah.
At first I was going to say sort of insulting Baylor by saying 2 bad teams. There's bad and then there's really bad. And if you go off of last week's Houston performance, it was really bad. But no, to your point, offensively, they do have some explosiveness, and they've showed it at times. They showed it in the West Virginia game. They showed it in the first half against Texas Tech. They showed it in the second half against Texas, where they were able to come back from a 21-0 deficit. But it's just a matter of they haven't put it together. You know, they're kind of like Baylor. They start off slow, but when Donovan Smith has gotten in a rhythm, he's got 3 really, really good receivers that he goes to. So they don't go for the deep shot as much, but they certainly go with the short passes that they sort of make big yards out of. But it's all in the passing game lately. They don't have much of a running game to speak of.
Do you think that their running game might see some advantages, though, playing one of the worst run defenses in the country in Baylor?
Well, that would be the hope. You know, they have a true freshman, Parker Jenkins, who's settled into that role probably the last 5 games. It has, when you're facing Texas's defensive front, they knew they weren't going to get any yards there, and they didn't. Last week, they got into a situation where they had to throw the ball. So the last 2 weeks, you might kind of throw it as a wash that you didn't really get to see what they wanted to do from a running standpoint. But, this would be the week considering who they're facing and the fact that they would like to get Jenkins and Tony Mathis, who's from West Virginia and is very familiar with Baylor, get those 2 guys some work out of the backfield.
Joseph, it's been a struggle for Baylor everywhere you look, but offense, can't run the football, can't pass, all that well. What was Dana's kind of messaging? I know he brought up the whole truck in the parking lot, COVID year. That's still kind of a subplot here. It was that whole fiasco. But, in terms of just talking about the program, what did he have to say, if anything, about, what he's seen from the Bears or Dave Aranda?
Well, he wants this to be one of those regular games, and the Matrix came out this week from the Big 12, and these schools will play 4 times over the next 4 years, so each of the next 4 years, and that's something that he wants to see. Dana's very well versed with
the history and having been in the Big 12. And then also, these are schools that at some point, they cross paths in recruiting. So a lot of familiarity, a lot of history between the two programs. And yes, the whole equipment truck fiasco from the COVID year. I try to bait him a little bit, say, hey, when are you sending the truck down this week? And he's like, hey, I'm not going to go there. Mac Rhodes was mad at me last time, and I don't want Mac to be mad at me again this time. So, a lot of history, and a lot of people in Houston, even in a bad year, are looking forward to the games against TCU and Texas Tech, and especially, the one time against Texas and now Baylor. This will complete the reunion tour for this year.
Doesn't that say quite a bit about the respect? Because Holgorsen had the right probably to say what he said, no matter the situation at the time in 2020. But there is a great deal of respect from Pesman and Dana among Kelvin Sampson when it comes to Mac Rhodes.
There is. And, and for Kelvin, he's good friends with Scott Drew as well. But, Mac was at Houston for several years, and he was instrumental in bringing Kelvin on board. He didn't have any, he brought Tom Herman and on board. But, Dana's known them. Dana's, been in those circles when they meet at the annual meetings. So, Mac is very well regarded. A lot of people thought he did a wonderful job there. He was part of when the new football stadium came online and sort of the beginning of the resurrection of the basketball program there. So, it's, and you see what he's doing in Baylor, and I'm sure he's had some opportunities that he could have left or looked for other jobs. And, he's paid very well in Waco, and I think that he wants to be, for the long haul.
Joseph, what is your, now as we're to the back half of this or part of the season, assessment of Donovan Smith?
The consistency just hasn't been. They've done a better job in pass protection, so that has helped. But he came in as a guy that he had a lot of experience, but he hadn't been the guy on a team. And we've seen that now. He for a while had done really well protecting the ball, not having turnovers. But the last week he had an interception. He's had a fumble recently. So there's some things that he's still working through. But then you look at his numbers, and I believe he's third in the Big 12 in passing. And he's the last few weeks. You take those the Kansas State game, which was by far the worst game he's had all year. I mean, he's been okay, and this was going to be an important transition from Clayton Tune, and they got it out of that, him and Tank Dell for 2 years, going to the new guy. And there hasn't been a quarterback, controversy. And this is Donovan Smith's team, and it will continue to be Donovan Smith's team. It's just a matter of, it's taken him some time to sort of get comfortable and feel his way through what this offensive identity be.
So, Joseph, they're entering the final month. They're 3-5, and the final month actually sets up pretty well for them. I mean, as far as like opponents go, you got a struggling Baylor. You've got Cincinnati, who you're familiar with. You got UCF. Of course, there's Oklahoma State, which will be at home, and that's a different story. But 3 of those 4, winnable or familiar. At 3-5 right now, I guess a bowl's not off the table entirely, but it's unlikely. So just where they sit right now and where you expect them to probably finish, how would you sort of gauge the temperature on, what the expectations were going in and how you feel they've fared up to this point in the Big 12?
Well, you're right. The compared to October, November sets up about as well as you can be for a 3-5 team, because you do have the opportunity. You're not looking and staring at, Oklahoma, Texas, and either playing Texas or Kansas State later in the year. So they have that going for them. But, this was going to be a rough year to begin with. At the beginning of the year, the athletic director said bowl appearance and just being competitive were sort of the goals, and that it would be a transition year. So I think if you look at the Rice game is the one that could haunt them, and losing that game for many reasons. But if you win that game, you're 4-4 right now, and things really look good for you. And if you beat Baylor this weekend, you're setting up nicely. So that's sort of where people look at this program right now as, the one that got away. They should have had that Rice game. And what does that mean for the future? Dana, the hot seat on him is getting warmer. And last week, when you don't score for the first time in 23 years, it sort of, the knob gets turned up a little bit more. And I think a loss tomorrow would just, and I don't want to say it would be the nail in the coffin, but it certainly wouldn't play well with the alumni base, fan base. It's already at a really high temperature. So they've got to close out, and 5-7. If you're there, maybe that keeps him around. Maybe you have to see which wins they're going to be of that group, but it's certainly he didn't want to say a must win, but that's where they are right now. These games are all must win.
Okay, so I had it just jotted down just now to ask about the hot seat and how legitimate that was, because it's been a topic of conversation here for a little while. But you're saying there is something to that. I mean, we know there's some angst and all that, but I mean, as far as them feeling strongly enough to maybe do something if things don't go right this final month, you do think there is something to that actual conversation?
I do think that there's something to it, and and I'm sure you guys have heard this. The comment that always come up is a few years ago when they had Major Applewhite, the school president came out and said, "We fire coaches that go 8-4."
Yeah.
Well, Houston would take an 8-4 right now, to be honest with you. And I think that they've reached a point where they are going to have to look at it. Dana was the choice to come into the Big 12 since he had a history and sort of was able to take them into that. How can you sort of, toe the line or between mediocrity and
I think we may have lost him. Sounded like he might. There you go. Okay, lost you for a second, Joseph. I'm sorry.
The elephant in the room is the $15 million buyout. That's the big thing. Will they be able to step up, or do they want to step up and pay that amount and make another change? And then the amount of money that it'll take to bring in a new coach and a staff. So a lot of decisions have to be made, and they, I think we'll have a clearer picture in the next 2 weeks with Baylor and Cincinnati. If you lose to both of them, I can see that being it for them, because these are two games that they should be in the running to win.
And that money, to clarify, Joseph, a buyout money, that means that a donor or two, and we know who the big boy is, would write a check, or at least a couple of 5 or 6 of them would. That's not to say, okay, we're finally making pretty good money in the Big 12, but we're going to take $15 million out of that and go pay off a coach, right?
Yeah, that money, as they put it, is not there yet. The checks haven't cleared yet. And an interesting thing in Dana's new contract, that this new contract is only a year in, and it triggered when they got into the Big 12, where it was kind of a good faith. They were going to rework the deal because they got into the Power 5 conference. It's structured now where I believe they wouldn't have to just do a lump sum $15 million. It could be payable in monthly. So it's sort of like you tell them, goodbye, but you'll still pay him for as long as it takes to pay off that amount of money. It's not like it's coming out all at once, but certainly they were a year or two in the Big 12, and those big annual revenue shares were coming in. It would help a little bit more, but this is certainly something that is going to be donor funded and really probably Tillman funded.
Yeah. Joseph, thank you, man. Great to have you in Waco. Welcome, and appreciate your time. Joseph Duarte does a great job, Houston Chronicle, covering University of Houston, the Cougars, and I do like that they're back. I know a lot of people have their own thoughts about some of the teams. I've always appreciated it. Of course, I'm very, melancholy in a way. That's maybe not the right word. I loved when Bill Yeoman in Houston was good. They ran the veer. They were really good. I know they have a lot to do and a lot to get better. Even Dana's admitted that, but I'm glad that they're playing Baylor this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to have, some of that, for all the talk about the tradition that's going away, to have some of it return. It's not going to replace, everything that people knew growing up and all of that, but it is a little something that wasn't there these last several years. So, yeah, I mean, there will be some romanticizing of the matchup in a way. But as far as the game itself goes, two pretty middle-of-the-road to bad teams, and it's a bit of a mid-off, guys. I mean, it really is. So we'll see.
Mid?
Yeah,
wait a minute.
I'm being nice.
You used that last night with Tech and TCU.
I know.
What the hell does that mean?
It's basically they're two mid teams, and so it's a showdown and a mid off between two teams and that are pretty much there in the middle. And no, you could argue that it's less than that, but I'm being kind, and I do like that Houston's around. I was very hesitant about an SMU or a Houston, but circumstances call for what they call for, and eventually Houston did make some sense. I still was not ever going to be inclined to think that SMU was a good move. I just didn't feel like it would bring all that much with all the Texas representation that you already had. It would bring some rivalry and tradition, but not exactly what in the style that the Big 12 was looking for. So, it'll be cool. It'll be something different, and it'll have a little layer that hasn't been there for some other games as far as just the familiarity goes. But I wanted to ask about the Dana stuff because that, he's pretty obviously mentioned with every hot seat conversation or whatever list you come across, but you don't really know to what degree, right? Especially first year in the Big 12, and is that just fan talk because they're fed up and they want somebody different, or is that legitimate? And as Joseph pointed out, that's pretty legitimate. And I had forgotten about that quote about the 8-4 thing and the winning head coaches. I had totally forgotten about that until he reminded me. And so they, by their own words, what's going on there is not up to snuff. So that'll be a situation to monitor, especially if they don't win tomorrow.
We have Cody Bradford, former Baylor pitcher, part of that World Series team. Had a chance to visit with him when he got home late yesterday evening about these last few weeks and just the thought that he's a part of a World Series championship team. He is next, including being on the road almost 3 weeks. How did they do the laundry? And that we have that, plus also Mike Scarborough on LSU in about 15 to 20 minutes. Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, get 2.9% for 72 months on new 2023 1500 Lone Star and Laramie 4x4 crew cabs, or $11,000 off MSRP on Lone Stars and $12,500 off MSRP on Laramies.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Samantha Duvall, Marketing Director for TexasBeefHouse.com. You know all about their great Wagyu beef and product they have. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com for anything you want to order. But, Samantha, thanks for your time. There's an auction coming up in the month of November. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so November 11th, we're having our first public beef auction. It's going to be here at our ranch in White House, Texas. It's going to be a live auction. You can bid in person, you can bid on the phone, or we'll also have it online. We're auctioning off Wagyu and Angus beef. We'll have 30 to 40 pound bundles. They'll be full of steaks, hamburger, and primals. this is perfect for not only the restaurant owners, but also homeowners.
So if somebody wants to load up your deep freezer with some great product from a place that is just delivering all of the time, with Wagyu from their ranch to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
The 365 Sports Friday Show is presented by Bird Culchin Ford and the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company.
Rangers pitcher Cody Bradford, former Baylor pitcher Cody Bradford, David Smoak, 365 Sports. Can you even put into words what you have experienced in the last 24 hours, much less just in the last 2 or 3 weeks?
Oh, my goodness, David. Honestly, I don't know where to start. I guess first I'll just say, all the glory goes to God. He's given me and the rest of the team our abilities to play baseball at this level and the opportunity as well. So can't say enough for the man upstairs, and all the glory goes to him. But David, I don't know. My feet haven't touched the ground yet, and I don't know if it'll ever set in if we're a World Series champ.
There was a chance you were going to be a part of the deciding game. You have been a major part of what the Rangers have done in the postseason. The bullpen really kind of went to a different level. What was it like warming up? Maybe it's you. Obviously, Sports was pitching great. Leclerc he wasn't even needed. What was all of that anxiety, excitement, what?
Yeah, I think, in the moment, you just try and, take the emotions out of it and focus on the job at hand. And I got hot 3 times yesterday to come in. Mike Maddox had pulled me aside before the game and said, "Hey, we want to keep you fresh. That's why you only pitched an inning the day before. And it'll either be you or Dunning today if Evo gets in trouble, depending on where we are in the Diamondbacks lineup." And just so happened every time Evo got into a little bit of a scare yesterday, it happened to be, in that left-handed pocket where they need a left-handed pitcher. And so it was an honor that, Bruce, Bochy, and Maddox had, faith and trust in me to get warm and handle that, But didn't get to come in, but still really, really cool nonetheless.
Cody, the bullpen, obviously there's so many moving parts. It's not an easy job. You never know. Unless you're a closer, you kind of have an idea. But even then, you never know. And you've been a starter, and you did start for the Rangers and made your debut this year. Was anything said, or is it just everybody didn't need to say anything? Everyone just knew that they needed to pitch better and be more, I guess, ready when that time came?
Yeah, I think everybody down there obviously has the talent, right, to get guys out at the big league level. You have guys like Aldis Chapman throwing 100, and even Spores who might have struggled a little bit earlier in the year. But when guys get confidence and you have a couple run lead, and Corey Seager and Simeon putting up huge at bats and the offense scoring a ton of runs, it helps bullpen guys, go in with more confidence and takes a little bit off our plate and allows us to just go out there and pound the zone and throw strikes. And I think, the playoffs was a culmination of that, where, the offense got really hot and seemed to stay hot game after game. And it really helped the bullpen come through when we needed it most.
What's it like in the bullpen? You always hear about the great stories. Some guys are a little bit more loose than others. What's that like? What's that Rangers bullpen been like?
It's been incredible. There's a lot of guys down there that have so much more experience than I do in the major leagues. And, I think Chapman has maybe 11, 12, 13 years of service time. Will Smith's got his 10 years of service time. You got a bunch of ex-starters down there. You got Heaney, who started earlier this year, John Gray, who started, even a couple IL guys like Ian Kennedy, who's got 13 years in the show, and so much wisdom and just confidence that they can pass around and help guys like me learn how to fit in and learn how to get guys out. It's incredible. I'd say being in the bullpen, was there was a bit of a learning curve for me. I didn't have any experience in that in high school or college or even pro ball. My first, I guess I had one outing at Baylor my freshman year out of the bullpen, and it was in the elimination game at the very end. It was the last game of the season in playoffs. And Coach Strauss at the time I had been starting freshman year, and he said, Cody, go get hot. We might not have a game tomorrow. We want you to get you some postseason experience. And I went down there, and freshman me was so excited to come in a playoff game. Went in and gave up 5 runs and didn't get an out. And just kind of came out of that game feeling like a truck hit me and didn't know where it came from. But, man, the bullpen's it's so exciting. You have to watch every out of the game. You have to be engaged. You need to pay attention and see if hitters are making adjustments to the starters and how you want to attack. And it's just a really cool dynamic down there.
You mentioned your debut in the playoffs at Baylor. And your opening game against, of course, was the best team in baseball until the postseason, Atlanta. And you go in there, things are fine, and then you get hammered. Did you use that experience because you became the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year? Here you are on a World Series roster. Did you use that experience this year when things didn't start well?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like with anything in life, you try and use failure as a learning opportunity. And so anytime you fail in baseball, right, that's a good thing. You're able to learn what not to do the next time you go out. And so starting off against Atlanta was no easy task. It was a pretty tall order. And like you said, got knocked around a little bit and was humbled by that. But I learned so much from that one experience, knew what to expect the next time. And, the next start happened to be against Baltimore and went a little bit better. And then, ended up facing them in the playoffs. And, if not for that second opportunity, I wouldn't have had the confidence pitching to Baltimore in the playoffs, knowing how to get those guys out. So you never know how the season's going to go. And you can't help but see God's hand in everything. So it's pretty cool.
The end of the season was tough. Obviously, the team was not on fumes, but it was tough. And then Houston had gotten hot and Seattle was playing great. What was that weekend like? And how do you just as a team just like wash it away, go into Tampa, win 2, go to Baltimore, win 2 there? How did that happen?
I think we all expected to go into Seattle and handle business and clinch the division. We went in with a short lead on Houston, but I think we all expected to clinch it. And I think the way Seattle played against us kind of was a punch in the gut, to the team, to the offense, and to the pitching staff. Like, hey, these guys came to play. And, after we won the second game there, I think, or the third game to end Seattle's season, essentially. They had no chance to make the playoffs. Yet, the game, 1 or 2 games after that, they still came out firing on all cylinders. And it's like, hey, these guys aren't going away. We got to turn it up a notch. And we just didn't quite click all at the same time, right? Pitching and the hitting just didn't quite match up when we were there and at the right time until we got to Baltimore. And once we got to Baltimore, Evaldi and Monty had phenomenal starts there. And I think that just able going forward.
Will Smith, how in the world, 3 consecutive years, 3 different teams, and has 3 rings?
Yeah, he's a lucky rabbit foot. The joke on the bus and on the plane on the way back from Arizona was wherever Will Smith goes, whether he's here next year or with another team, man, that team better know what they're getting because anywhere he goes seems to be a winning team. So that's pretty cool.
How was it like on the road from Seattle across country, flying right over Dallas? And that's been, I know the story's been told, but just as someone like you, what was that like?
I'll say winning baseball games is never a beatdown. That's always, so much fun.
Absolutely.
Now, on me, the rest of the guys, on my wife, that was a very long road trip. And it got to a point where, like, we ran out of laundry on that road trip. We didn't have clean clothes, so we had to start packing clothes in grocery bags and taking it to the field, asking the clubbies, hey, man, can you wash some of my socks? Because I don't have any left in my luggage. We haven't been home to do simple things like do our laundry. So that was pretty kind of funny at the time, but what a fun road trip. It was so much fun.
I've always said this. We all know the NFL, the Cowboys, and what they've meant to Dallas and Fort Worth and where they are in their stature. But I have been a Rangers fan before they even moved to Arlington. I was in D.C. My dad was at the Pentagon. Frank Howard's my favorite player, and he passed away just a couple of days ago. Yeah, so I've been a Senators fan to a Rangers fan. I was like, could never watch back to Game 6 in 2011 and all of that. And do you understand what this might mean to the fan base too?
Man, when you put it like that, it makes me feel so young. And but Dave, I gotta say, the fan base is incredible. I know there's been so many ups and downs, and I grew up a Rangers fan. I grew up in Aledo, just outside of Fort Worth.
Sure.
I remember that Game 6 and 2 in 2011, like the Nelson Cruz missed catch, and something we're never gonna forget. But hopefully now, that makes it a little bit sweeter that in 2023, Rangers fans can say that their team won the very last game of the season. They didn't lose it, and so that's something to hang their hats on. And it's a testament to the ownership and their vision, and the fans coming to the games and giving support and allowing us to go out and buy players like Corey Seager and Simeon and DeGrom and Evaldi to have that winning culture. So as much as it was the team winning, it's also the fans out there that helped the team win.
Mitch Thompson sent me a text. I told him he helped me get the number, as you know, and he shared the number for you. And, man, I got to tell you, thank you considering all that's going on and where you've been and the travel and the excitement of coming on with us. Great young man, loves Baylor. Just tell him how proud everyone at Baylor is for him and the Rangers. And, of course, David Murphy was on with us on Thursday, former Rangers Baylor player, too. The connection of Baylor. Mitch is trying to turn the program around. And having Cody Bradford on a World Series team and Max Muncy just signed a new deal. How much do you want to see the success at Baylor with Mitch and get Baylor back where they need to be in baseball?
Oh, so much. My wife and I both attended Baylor. We both played sports there. My wife played softball and I played baseball. And we love Baylor sports. We love Baylor athletics. And, we actually still reside in Waco during the off season. I train there in the weight room that the other guys train at too. Maybe just might be a little bit different time, but I can't wait to be around the team this fall and get to talk with Mitch and share some ideas with him and just pick his brain. And if there's any way that I can help the team while I'm down there, man, I'd love that. So, Baylor athletic supporter through and through.
Appreciate you letting me take a little bit more time. Get some rest. I bet you sleep like a baby tonight after getting back home in your bed and have a chance to just soak it all in. And thanks for your time, Cody.
Thanks so much, David, for having me on.
Cody Bradford, Rangers World Series champion pitcher on 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco on Franklin Avenue. They have a second location, depending on where you want to go, where you are, and same great customer service at both spots. It is craft bourbon time. It's fall. Look, it's always kind of craft bourbon time, but look, it's the fall. It's football season. Sometimes, if you're me or like me, which I hope you are, you like to sit down and pour yourself a nice bourbon and watch your favorite football team. And where do you get that craft bourbon if you're here in Central Texas? Well, you go to Riverbend Liquor and Wine and find some of the best that the world has to offer, and especially that the state of Texas have to offer. If it's a local, made-in-Texas craft bourbon, they've got it at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and on 19th Street. Absolutely great customer service, speedy drive-through window. Everything about that place is fantastic. So if you are a bourbon fanatic like me, then you need to stop by River and Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, or now in downtown Waco.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533, Chuck Verno at 720 North 64th Street, Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense in investing, member SIPC. Baylor Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go, the last half hour of the week here on 365 Sports with Paul and Craig. I'm David Smoak, and our good friend Mike Scarborough taking a little bit off of his coverage of women's basketball at LSU to cover the LSU-Alabama game in Tuscaloosa. Mike, thank you. It's almost as if LSU has been under the radar since that loss early to Florida State. Who are they compared to who they were that early game against the Seminoles?
I think they're significantly better, but it's hard to measure really because that was actually Jaden Daniels' worst performance of the year, and it was actually a very strong performance. The issue all season long for LSU has been defense. So throughout the season, it's basically been, if they could just go from atrocious defense to mediocre, they'd be undefeated. And look, if they end up pulling the upset tomorrow night in Tuscaloosa, and there'll be a lot of parallels to last season after opening the season with a Florida State loss in New Orleans. But I think a lot of people would be kicking themselves over the loss to Ole Miss. But there's still a lot of football games left. You lose, or even if you win tomorrow night, you got Florida at home next week, and then you'll end with A&M.
So, Mike, they made some decisions with Harold Perkins early in the year that didn't seem to really work out. Have they started to maybe bend away from making him a middle linebacker?
Yeah, I think that they want to do a combination of things with him. Part of the reason why they wanted to get away from that was because, you can game plan him. And that's what Texas A&M did at the end of last season, and Georgia did in the SEC championship game. But at the same time, with his athleticism, you've got to get him more involved. And particularly when LSU was struggling, when Jimmy Lindsey, LSU's defensive line coach, went down with his medical condition and has been unavailable since the day before fall camp started, that really set everything back at LSU. And so when the defensive line wasn't getting much pressure,
And Harold Perkins wasn't doing much of anything because you were trying to shoehorn him into being a traditional linebacker. No rush off the edge of note, with cornerbacks that are definitely not what you're used to seeing at LSU. It was a recipe for disaster, and it being one of the worst defenses I've seen in 30 years. So, but they have gotten better in the last 3 weeks, but how much of that is fool's gold? Because a little bit of Missouri, which Missouri is a good offensive team. Certainly Auburn was a very good matchup for LSU, and then Army. This Alabama team is a different animal, but there's some thoughts also that this is a very good matchup for LSU as well. But I think it all starts with that defensive front for LSU. They're going to have to stop the run because they're going to want to run the football. They run it about 60% of the time already. I imagine he might want to do it that much at a minimum or more, just because you want to slow the game down and try and keep Jaden Daniels off the field.
Mike, what is kind of the temperature check as far as just Matt House and that LSU defense moving forward? Is there a feeling that it just will take some time and it all come together? Is there a feeling that you need something different? Kind of how would you describe that?
I think the fans think that Matt House is in trouble. The media would say is probably about 2/3 saying he's not going anywhere, and I'm one of those.
Okay.
You've got a Jims and Joe's problem, and you've got assistant coaches on that side of the ball problem.
Okay.
And like I said, it all started with Jimmy Lindsey's medical condition. Will he come back and coach in the future? We don't know, but they've got to address that defensive line coach position. You brought 82-year-old Pete Jenkins out of retirement, and he's the reason why they've been playing better in the last 3 games. But that is not a permanent solution. And so, and then we'll see what else they do with a couple of the other coaches. I think the over and under on defensive assistants, where there's going to be some changes in the offseason, is probably 2 or 3.
Mike, they still have a really nice class they're putting together. Signing day's a little over a month away. And again, I said, they've been under the radar only because of that opening game. Is everything going well with who they're adding to this football team, National Signing Day?
It is, but I will say, though, that wherever you're ranked, there's no national ranking out there that takes into consideration your needs.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not meeting their needs when it comes to defensive linemen. And so that is a sore spot in this recruiting class. And so now with Wingo out for the season with surgery, is that a kid that they can convince to come back? And that if he does come back rather than go pro, that would be a nice shot in the arm. But they're going to need they offered about 3 or 4 junior college defensive linemen about 6 weeks ago. And some of those I scratched my head about and not sure that any of those are going to be much of any help to LSU. So they're going to have to do something in the portal if they can't get Wingo and maybe 1 or 2 others to come back for their senior years.
Wingo's out for the year, right? He's not coming back?
Yeah, he had a surgery, and BK said 6 weeks, which is basically the season, unless somehow he is ahead on his rehab, and somehow LSU wins out and does become that first 2-loss team to make it in the playoffs.
So, Mike, Jaden Daniels, you kind of touched on him at the beginning, having a monster year. I mean, still in that grander conversation, should they beat Alabama and he has a certain type of performance, maybe find his way to New York here in a few weeks. But just how would you kind of put, and I know LSU's had their greats, but how would you kind of put his performance and his role on this team into perspective?
Look, I was just being able to understand football when Burt Jones' career ended at LSU, but I've seen them all. Hodson, Rohan Davey, Matt Flynn, Matt Malt, Joe Burrow, etc., Mettenberger. I've seen them all. Jaden Daniels is second only to Joe Burrow in LSU history in my lifetime.
Mm.
And basically my lifetime is the golden years of quarterbacks anyways. So he's that good. I keep looking to see when some of the national NFL draft guys are going to update their quarterbacks board. But how he is not a guy that projects as a first rounder, I have no idea. I think he's going to be a great pro. So, look, he's got to win the game at Alabama, national television audience. If he has a typical Jaden Daniels performance and LSU wins, I think he probably comes out of this weekend as the front runner. But, usually to the victor goes the spoils, and LSU can't have 3 or 4 losses and win the Heisman.
All right, so I hate the fact that you put slander on a good friend of ours and Matt Flynn.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. No, we knew him for many years. Craig knew him as a classmate, and of course we covered him in high school. No, I get it. I
covered his recruiting. I broke the news of his commitment to LSU. That's how far I go back.
You talk about a guy that is saturated, marinated with LSU football. It's Matt Flynn, no question. But I do love what Daniels is doing, and I get what you're saying about second to just Joe Burrow. So they win the game. If they do, is it because they're better than Bama, or that Bama is just not who they have been either?
It would be both. This is not a typical Alabama football team. They have weaknesses, but they are the home team. They do have, revenge on their mind after last year. LSU's defense is, the guys line up at corner in years past wouldn't even be on the 3 deep at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they don't get pressure on the quarterback and make some things happen or get several stops, Alabama will win the football game. But because it's not a typical Alabama football team, and this LSU team has defensive problems, but it's still, so that the fact that we're saying LSU can win the football game tells you that that's not a Nick Saban Alabama football team that you're used to seeing.
Mike,
they're gettable by a lot of people. A lot of teams that thought they were gettable all year, but they keep on winning.
Yeah, they do, and they find ways differently each week. Thank you, man. Appreciate your time as always. Have a great weekend. Ought to be a great game. Enjoy it, and thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Talk soon.
Mike Scarborough, TigerBait.com. And, Mike is normally, and LSU has given him a lot of reasons, very high on the Tigers, but you could almost sense that no matter what happens tomorrow, that not everything what needs to be either in Baton Rouge or Tuscaloosa.
What did he tell me? I had him on maybe that first week when high school football started, second week, and I said what's up with this LSU team? And he was like, this is the worst LSU defense I've ever seen. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, he's got a point. You watch their defense?
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're LSU and you are every year's a playoff year potentially, or every year's winning the SEC, at least the very bare minimum competing for it, and you've got a player the likes of Jaden Daniels, and you've got an offense or a defense like this that's clearly your big bugaboo, that is the problem. That is the issue, and defense is not an issue, nor should it really ever be an issue at LSU. So, you give up, just 18 to Auburn a couple weeks ago. We know the Army game, just scratch that, but gave up 39 to Missouri, gave up 55 to Ole Miss, gave up 31 to a bad Arkansas team. So that's what your little run has been there. And then you gave 45 up in the opener to Florida State. So you're not just giving up points in some of these games. You're giving up like 35-plus points. And, when you've got an offense that can score, that's great. But when you're asking them, you got to score 40 to, beat a threshold that we're probably going to win this game, even for Jaden Daniels, that's a bit, and then SEC defenses and whatnot, that's a tall task, man. So that defense has held them back from being a better team than just the 6-2. But go in tomorrow, and Jaden Daniels will probably get that New York invite, and they'll be right in the thick of things. And they did lose to Ole Miss, so that'll make it interesting as far as the West Division goes this last 3 weeks. But Jaden Daniels is playing spectacular football. And, that's going to be a very interesting game tomorrow because, LSU's 14th and Bama's 8th? When's the last time they were that low?
Yeah, the combined 22 normally would have been one team was 1 or 2,
right,
and the other one was just having a down year.
Yeah, so it's very odd, but also maybe even more interesting in that regard of that you don't really know, which team is which as far as their level of elite play or who's going to show up and play a certain way. So, it's going to be a fun game tomorrow for sure.
All right, when we come back, we'll wrap it up with Paul's top 5. Again, tomorrow, our pregame for Baylor and Houston will start at 10 a.m. run until 11:30, well before the kickoff at 2:30. That's just a programming note on the local CW and 365 Sports.
It's such a huge game. We're doing 4.5 hours of pregame for it.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
And tonight, every night, 10:30, 365 Sports tonight on the CW. And thanks to Emery Winter for what he does to put all that together. Jack McKenzie has come in like spores for the Rangers to close it out to help win the World Championship of Podcast Radio. Back with Paul's Top 5 is next.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 most topsy-turvy things about the 2023 season. Inspired by number 5, Sean Lewis's status as a head coach candidate, which is number 5. And this guy, first 4 weeks of the season, he's going to be somewhere else coaching, and like he's shown this prolific offense. And then you guys were talking about I was trying to get Duarte on the air, but there are like now he's been demoted, and this is how they've responded to the losing streak and all that. It's very strange. I think he'll be a head coach. I think he'll be a very exciting one when he is. But man, this was a bit of a weird turn today, because when I watched that, I'm not thinking the play calling's bad. I'm thinking the offensive line is criminally bad. And that's not necessarily on Sean Lewis, who just got there.
Is this Dion deflecting a little bit?
Sometimes I think it's you try to do whatever you can to spark something.
I feel like if this was somebody not named Dion, that's not where our brains would immediately go. But I do feel like in this case, that's what everybody wants it to be, because it's a negative light on Dion, right? I think there's definitely people rooting for it to be that because they're rooting for failure, or maybe they just were put off by all of the coverage early on or whatever, and like, oh, see, he can make mistakes or whatever. But yeah, it's just bizarre, right? Like I mean, their offense has been very. I was just talking earlier. We were talking about the lowest rushing totals in the country, and they're like nearly at the very bottom, of all of college football. So, yeah, I mean, Shedeur can only do so much, and when you're not even blocking for him, like, I mean, what can you do offensively?
Yeah.
So something needed to change, like down this stretch run. If they want to try to make a bowl game, like they needed to do something to shake things up. I don't know if this was the move that needed to be made. I don't know enough about what goes on inside those walls, but I know that's certainly the reaction of most people is this is deflection from, other issues or whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see clearly when they're going to play these next 4 games.
I didn't bring it up. The apps. I like what Deion's done, and I hope he has success. But in his post-game following UCLA, he continued to talk about needing to protect Shedeur, and he talked about some coaches needing to get players to step up and play better.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about you necessarily, but there are people that are absolutely rooting for him to fail. And so they look at this, and they're not going to sit there and think of like, oh, well, was this the smart move? Was this the right move? They're going to go, he's losing it. He's blaming Sean Lewis, and now he's, and so that's, and I know we don't want to get in the mud of Twitter and all that, but so it's hard to tell what's what really. And so that's why we need to see kind of what Deion says about this and then how they play, especially in the immediate aftermath, and that will be telling as well.
I want to say this. I love Deion's post games.
Yeah.
I love them.
The only thing that Deion has said in the whole build-up to the season and throughout was early on, when he was in the spring, he was talking about the roster, and somebody asked him, like, how do you set expectations? And he was very Deion, and he said, y'all don't know who we have coming. And I was like, yeah, we kind of do. Like, kind of do. Like, it's one of those.
Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders.
So you have Travis and Shedeur and Shiloh. Like, we know those guys are good. Like, we kind of know that. But some of the other ones that you're getting, yes, they're better than the players that Colorado had the year before, but they weren't like, it wasn't like he went to Georgia's roster and was like, here you go,
Right. And as we always say about the portal, there's a reason a lot of guys, like Keon Coleman's an exception, but there's a reason why a lot of guys are in the portal, right? And so everybody that you got in the portal didn't necessarily mean that they were going to be hits right away. But, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation. Is he scapegoating Lewis or whatever? I don't know. I think most of all they're looking for a spark and just trying to figure out some way to try and close the season strong. But, I feel for Sean Lewis in that, he did leave a head coaching job to go take this job, and he's not necessarily the guy who's really at fault for this, but he'll take, some blame for it. But he's going to be fine. Like, he's not going to be out of a job for very long. So I don't feel too bad about it because somebody will be quick to pick him up.
Yep. Number 4, the Big 12's power players. A month ago, the Texas-Oklahoma game this is going to be the first of 2 times they meet.
Yeah.
And because everybody else was kind of, treading water at best. And then all of a sudden, in the immediate aftermath of that game, everybody else is like, yeah, what do we miss? Oh, crap, we're in this thing. Let's go. And so now we're at this weekend of really big clashes, which I think a month ago, nobody thought was going to be this good. And so now here we are at the beginning of November, and the Big 12 is as up for grabs as it's been in every other season, and Oklahoma and Texas is chokehold on the league this year, which everybody thought, especially going into the Red River game. Oh, that's not the case.
Okay, let's also, and I know everyone's going to disagree. Not everyone. Oklahoma and Texas were both pretty good. We did not know quite enough about OU, and they had a huge win against Texas. But we always seem to do this. Now, that doesn't mean they won't play, and they might. But there's always 2 or 3, a couple of teams at least that come out of the middle of the pack and find a way to be very much involved that you didn't expect in the Big 12 race. Every year it seems like that's happened.
Yeah, but it's harder to say that 2 weeks before somebody emerges and just be like, no, just trust me, somebody's going to emerge from the pack. Like, I know what you mean, though. We're talking about what's actually happening. Early on the season, like K-State's losing a game early. They're losing to Missouri, and it's like, oh, wait, K-State's not as good as they were supposed to be. Texas Tech's, like, are they even going to be bowl eligible after the first month? And so, like, they're not in the mix. And then Baylor's awful. None of the newcomers look like they're ready. And so you're looking around, you're like, well, who is going to be contending with them? Now, K-State's obviously turned it on, and they've been able to get going, but Iowa State's a surprise, like that they're as good and they're in position. Oklahoma State's a surprise, and so they've all emerged, and that's made it. Because early on, though, you're right. I mean, it looked like those two coming out of the gates, Texas beats Alabama, Oklahoma's playing defense. You're like, damn, like those two look pretty good. But, yeah, I mean, and this tomorrow is likely – with one exception, the best shot for both of them to get beat. Oklahoma's got to play West Virginia next week at home, though. So maybe West Virginia could give them some problems, but They go to Provo as well, but I mean, what's BYU at that point really? And then they host TCU, and I don't really worry about that one too much. Texas, meanwhile, goes to Fort Worth, which whatever. They go to Iowa State, so maybe that's another one for them. Then they host Texas Tech, which is whatever. So there is at least one more game in the final 3 for each of them that could maybe get a little squirrely, but tomorrow is definitely the games that you circle and you go like, that's the best chance for one or both of them to lose on a Saturday and not to, and certainly one of them losing and not to one another.
Number 3. Alabama. Like, they're dead. They're alive. They don't look good. They commit a lot of penalties. They're still in contention for the SEC West title. Yeah. Only one thing's really changed in that they're on the outside of the CFP and looking in, as opposed to most.
They don't control their own destiny.
Yeah, they don't control their own destiny.
Not even if they were to run the table, it would still not quite be that. Although probably
no. And part of that is also that there are really good teams at other leagues that have all looked better than Alabama. So they don't also have that. I don't think this year, if it came down to the eye test of a bunch of one-loss teams, Alabama wouldn't just be we'll put Alabama in there because we know, because they haven't done that at all. Yeah. They haven't really passed that eye test. Is where if it came down to, say, Ohio State beats Michigan, and you're looking at Michigan's one loss against Alabama's one loss, you're like, well, their eye test is better, so you're going to put Michigan in. So like that would be the thing. And that's, again, another wild hypothetical, but, we're in a weird year where Alabama, I'm sure Nick Saban walks in after these losses and goes, this crap doesn't make sense. I'm glad we're winning. I'm doing all I can here, but it really doesn't make sense.
No, I thought that you wonder at the end of the year, could this be his best coaching job? If they were to somehow keep surviving and moving on and finding a way, could this end up being, as far as at Alabama, although other than the first couple of years he was there?
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as not controlling their own destiny, they're going to have to root for some losses, because the way it stands right now, Ohio State or Michigan's getting in above them, and this is not one of them falling to somebody else before them, which is unlikely. But, looking at it, okay, Ohio State or Michigan, both are above them. So one of those is going to grab a spot. Georgia, I mean, unless Bama beats Georgia on this run, and then that's how you would potentially do it. But Florida State, they got to hope Florida State loses to somebody. They got to hope Washington loses to somebody. They got to hope Oregon loses again. They got to hope Texas loses to get out of the way. So, yeah, they got to hope for a lot of losses by other teams. And it's doable, but you're running out of time, and you've got to win all your games as well. So tomorrow's enough of a test, much less than the rest of it, and then probably playing Georgia in the title game if you get there. So yeah.
What if Washington's loss is a close one to Oregon in the Pac-12 title game?
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't help them at all.
So I mean, to your point though, they've made it more interesting than it looked like it was going to be at the beginning of the year, and I would trade their bad years for a lot of other teams, good years. So yeah,
absolutely. Number 2, Lincoln Riley. Kicking young beat reporters out of the, banning them for a couple weeks because they did some things, that not letting players talk after a loss, seemingly telling people the NFL's got a much better schedule, which would make everybody at USC who just hired you 2 years ago go, all that. He always felt to me, when he was in Oklahoma, he's a pretty steady guy. And then the last couple years, it's been pretty topsy-turvy with him. And with that team, which, can score 50 points if they, when they need to. But really, it would be nice for USC fans if they didn't always need to score 50 to win.
Yeah, and that's going to be the case this weekend, too. That's going to be a shootout. There's no doubt about that with them in Washington. Yeah, you're right. That's the way a lot of Oklahoma fans felt, was, can we just play some defense, even a little bit of defense? And offense is great, but if you just played a little bit of defense, you'd barely lose any games. And he barely lost any games there as is. But when they ran into big time teams in the playoff and whatnot, it was pretty clear what the weaknesses were and how one dimensional that they could be. But it's been a weird year. Who knows where his mind's really at? Just had the sickness, or what was it, pneumonia that he had or whatever a week or so ago. It's just been strange. The loyalty to Alex
kicked it
Grinch,
a lot faster than I did. Or
yeah,
Smokey
no
did.
kidding, he did. Makes you wonder still, just because of his history and secret meetings that he's had in the past and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know where his head's at. I know it's been a tough year. Certainly not where USC thought that they would be in Caleb Williams' final run, but. yeah, that game tomorrow is going to be really really interesting from an offensive and defensive standpoint of like who actually gets a stop in that game.
Yep, absolutely. Number one, whatever the hell is going on at Michigan. This story was never really straightforward, and then today the reports, and now admittedly from Michigan, that they're in possession of documents that show that Ohio State is who found out that they were doing this by hiring private investigators with connections to Ryan Day's family. And to which I say, all right, like that's weird that Ohio State wouldn't just go to the Big Ten and say this, and that Tony Petitti certainly needs to deal with that too, but you're still cheating, right? Like you still broke the rules. So
there is a lot of deflection.
There's a ton of deflection.
There's a lot of burying heads in
It's
sand.
not technically cheating by the rule books, but it's like a moral, like,
from a place that has a holier than thou sometimes reputation of how they feel about themselves.
Especially since,
and it's a great university.
Especially since most of the coaches they hire are alums, because no one else could figure out how to win at Michigan.
Right.
You have to have been there to understand it. And then when they hired one, Rich Rodriguez, that wasn't, like, well, within a year, they're like, well, he doesn't understand. Like, it's like they still speak the language up there or something. It's weird. And then, you know, part of it is like, well, Connor Stallions wasn't at all these games. He just sent other people to do it. You're like, well, you know, yes, John Gotti didn't murder all the people that he told people to murder, but he still told them to do it.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
You know, you can't, like, all this deflection. Michigan, I think, needs to get to the point, like, there could be, and the smartest thing to do for them would be to go to the Big Ten and go, okay, look, you don't want us out of the championship game. We don't want to be out of the championship game. But how do we get this to stop now?
I don't know.
Where's in the middle?
There's only two things that are going to get people to stop, right? Harbaugh suspended, or they're not going to make them forfeit games. It's not going to happen. But go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I don't know is not an excuse for the head football coach, and especially not when the guy that you don't know about's right next to you in a whole lot of videos who's saying something to you or to your assistants, who's clearly looking across the field and taking away some things and turning to you or to someone else and saying something in your ear. Like, yeah, the whole I don't know is not a justifiable answer. And you know what? It wouldn't be even if we didn't see Connor Stallions in all those videos.
Yeah.
Because isn't that what the precedent is that if it's your program, you should know everything that's going on. Now, if it's some dude getting like a weed arrest and it just doesn't come across your desk somehow or another, it's a minor misdemeanor type of a thing, you should still know about that.
Yeah.
But, maybe, just maybe, that doesn't quite get all the way to you because of some reason or another, because it's not that big of a deal. But like this, I mean, this has to do with calculated, coordinated, scouting and plane tickets and, thousands of dollars at this point, tens of thousands probably spent on tickets and things. So, yeah, it's bizarre. Again, there's a lot of layers to peel back. I do think there are some people that are, Michigan fans who are just, well, they didn't technically break any rules. It was like, man, if you really look in the mirror, like, come on, you know what's up. Like, there's some shady stuff going on here. Whether or not you are going to chalk that up to everybody does it or whatever, it's like, no, this is a little bit more complex than it seems like any other systems out there. So, whether Ohio State turned them in or not, like, wouldn't that be fitting? Wouldn't that be what Ohio State would do if they found Michigan caught up in a huge scandal?
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Not to mention that there's also their ex-offensive coordinator that is under investigation by the FBI now for computer access crimes that we didn't even know what that is.
Yes, exactly. So it's a wild story that just seems like every day it gets a little wilder, and I have no idea where it eventually leads. But I am fascinated to, just be along for the ride and to see where this goes, because there's a lot to unpack for sure.
I just saw the tweet of the day. Frank Selfo, I knew him. He's the coach at, I believe it's southeastern Louisiana. He just put up a tweet with a picture of Connor Stallions, since you're talking about Michigan. If you buy 10 tickets to our game versus McNeese State tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'll give you a video camera for free. That is as Louisiana, a son of a gun, as you had ever known.
Yeah.
I love that guy. He used to be a high school coach outside of Tyler at Chapel Hill. Great guy. So there you go.
Yeah, look, they got to get butts and seats.
God, I love it. Jack McKenzie, thank you. Garrett Ross Emery, and also Levi, our sponsors. Thanks to all of you in the chat, the text line, and those of you who are watching that sit there and listen to us and watch us every day. We appreciate your loyalty and support. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, pregame tomorrow at 10 for the Baylor and Houston game. Kickoff not until 2:30. I'm David Smoak. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and good night on 365 Sports.